My toxic friend finds out that my dad passed away and only called me to try and confirm that information instead of trying to reach out and give their condolences. So as a result, I decided to end our friendship because I literally could not stand the fact that she only called to try and gossip about my dead father. And at this point, I'm not sure if I made the right decision or if I'm justified for doing things the way that I did. Here's what happened. To start things out, a few months ago, my father passed away. I was on his bedside and it was at 5 o'clock in the morning. He has been battling an aggressive disease for a while, and his partner called me because his situation worsened overnight. I immediately drove home the night before, but he didn't make it to the morning. At the moment, all I wanted to do was cry and mourn and figure out what to do next. My parents are divorced, and my mom was in another state, so it was left up to me to make the arrangements all while grieving at the same time. And of course, I called my mom to tell her the news. Unfortunately, without me knowing it, mom sends a message to their former co-workers about the news, and it's just general things to pray for me about. Both have been teachers and basketball coaches at high school that I went to, and the news spread like wildfire with social media. I obviously did not check social media at this crucial time, and I was literally waiting for people to pick up my father's body still in the early morning when a friend of mine started calling me. We were close before, and we were in the same group of friends that occasionally still met after high school, and for the sake of the story, let's call her Ella. Now, I didn't answer because I was waiting for the funeral arrangement calls, and I just didn't want to miss it. She tried calling over and over again, which really annoyed me, and it made me wonder how she knew about any of this. So I decided to block her number for a while. It was a long day of crying and making arrangements and then crying some more. When I finally got home that evening, I saw some messages pour in. Finally, I saw that our high school batch's group chat was activated, and I saw the chats and I was completely livid. It started with someone insinuating that my dad died, and the answers that followed were like, "Oh my god, I also heard that. Is that true?" Then Ella started chatting like she was my keeper. She said to them, "I'll confirm the news. I'll call them later on. Just wait for me." And people were like, "Well, what did they say?" And after a while, the old friend said, "She's not answering, so it's probably true." Now, at that point, I stopped reading. I realized that this friend was calling me not because she was concerned, but because she wanted to break the hot news to our old high school batch. She did text me several hours afterwards to say her condolences, but the trust was already broken. At my lowest point and on my worst day, Ella pestered me with calls just so she can call dibs on the confirmation. So I ended the friendship right then and there. I unfollowed and removed her from my socials, blocked her everywhere, and did not invite her when meeting with our same group of friends for the said reason. So did I overreact in this situation? Because right now I'm not sure if I made the right choice. Okay, in my opinion, I think you made the right choice because this is so unacceptable. Because it literally shows that your friend did not care about your dad passing in the slightest. They really did just want to break the news to everybody else, and that's all they had on their mind. They wanted to be the one to tell everybody what's going on instead of reaching out and being like, "Hey, I'm so sorry for your loss," or something like that. So no, you're not the jerk because honestly, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My roommate didn't get invited to our friend's bachelor trip, and now I'm worried that I have to carry the burden of telling him exactly what's going on. Here's what happened. So my friend and I met each other when we joined the same fraternity in college, and ever since then we became roommates, and we've all been part of the same friend group. He is a great guy that would do anything for any of us, and I would do anything for him, but there is a kicker. He has always been the socially awkward friend in the group. He has trouble effectively joining in conversations, laughs the loudest at his own jokes, his mom still makes frozen dishes for him that he re-ups on once a month, tries to play the band Korn at parties, and then gets mad when we take away his music privilege, and as much as I hate to say it, he is sort of the fringe and cringe friend in the group, and he's sort of there by association in a way. Recently, one of our friends set up a group chat for a bachelor's trip to Ireland. A number of us guys are in the chat, except for my roommate and our other close friend that my roommate grew up with, and this friend sort of got him in the friend group. So basically, everyone got invited except for my roommate and his childhood best friend. I asked the groom why he didn't invite them, and he said he didn't want to deal with him for a whole week, and didn't want him to feel too left out, so he decided not to invite his other friend as well, while also stating that they're still invited to the wedding. Now, it sounds awful, but it's not my wedding, and I'm not gonna press it. I asked if he planned to say anything to them, and his response was to say, "Well, not really, but if they want to reach out, they can." So that leaves me with the potential burden of telling my roommate that he's not invited to Ireland, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this really sucks because this is not an ideal situation, because your friend is essentially making some rift in the friend group that is honestly not okay, and it's putting you between a rock and a hard place. But I think there's an important factor fact about this that you really need to remember. That being that no, you don't have to tell him anything. You have every right to defer this over to the person who didn't invite him and be like, hey, I don't know the details, you can ask this guy instead and he'll tell you why you're not invited. Because in my opinion, if he's going to be the one to exclude someone from the group, then he should be the one to explain why that's happening and not you. A former employee was so bad that she caused my entire company to adopt a new rule where we refuse to hire mean people, all literally based off of the fact that she was one of the worst employees I've ever had to deal with. Here's what happened. So my wife and I own a balloon decor company with 8 employees. We take pride in paying a living wage and creating jobs for people who might not fit in the traditional workforce. And as such, we've come up with one indefinite rule in hiring where we say to ourselves that we don't want any mean people. And someone we will call Erin was the reason we instituted this rule. For reference, she was rude to the other staff and sometimes the customers and considered herself better than the rest of the sales team, but she also made frequent and sometimes costly errors. She would shift the blame when she could, or even downplay the errors when she couldn't. She had a steady stream of complaints to the boss, who is me, about her terrible coworkers, and a steady stream of complaints to her coworkers about her terrible boss. She loved snagging the high-value inquiries before anyone else, and then complained that we paid hourly rather than on commission. Our whole sales team, namely 3 people, had unrestricted access to QuickBooks, and it was built like that so that they could create invoices and bill clients. One day, my awesome sales manager told me that Erin had logged into the HR portion of QuickBooks and was quite literally looking at everybody else's paychecks. She wanted to know what the manager made so that she could argue for a raise. And by the way, it was a raise that she didn't deserve because she was barely holding onto her job at that point. Well, I just laughed because pay rates have never been a secret. The whole company's finances are an open book, and I feel that every one of our crew should be able to know our gross, net, material costs, wages, owner wages, debts, as well as anything else they might want to ask. And if she had asked me, I would have told her exactly what the sales manager made and what she needed to get a raise. But somehow she thought she could gain an advantage by being sneaky. The next day, I asked my bookkeeper to print out employees' pay rate, and I taped the printout to the whiteboard for everyone to see. And only Erin knew why it had suddenly appeared, and she was pissed off. A few weeks later, she was gone from the company, and I wrote up a who are we document for the whiteboard that every new employee will definitely see. It promises wage and financial transparency and is only one sentence capitalized: no mean people. Because trust me, I don't need another Erin in my office. Oh man, Erin sounds like an idiot. Seriously, she went out of her way to literally axe her own job. Like, does she really think she would be able to sneak into the QuickBooks and be like, oh yeah, now I know the actual secrets. Now I know what everybody's getting paid. This is go time for me. It's like, dude, you've got to know that your job is like on the line, right? You're not only complaining to the boss, but also to the employees that you're complaining to the boss about, and vice versa. Like, what are you doing? And for me, that's a big red flag the second someone's coming to me so willingly and being like, oh yeah, I've got so many complaints about this place, because you know for a fact they're going to be doing the exact same thing to you. So yeah, this whole situation is incredibly annoying, and honestly, I'm so glad you have that rule, because I would not want to work with mean people either. Am I the jerk for not opening the door to unannounced family members after they came to my house knowing that I didn't want them dropping by? Here's what happened. Okay, so where I'm from, people visit each other without any previous communication. The host then has to stop everything that they're doing and receive them, specifically if they are from the family. Now, I believe it's disrespectful to visit someone without justification or without a previous agreement. I know it's the culture of the country, but for me, it's like the visitor is saying, I know you have nothing better to do, so just drop it all and attend to me, disregarding any work or chore I may be doing. I've made it clear to my family that I'm strict with this, and even if I'm just watching a movie, playing video games, or looking at my cat, if you don't take the consideration of notifying me in advance, it doesn't matter if you're a few blocks away, coming from a different country, or from Mars. If you didn't text or call me in preparation to your arrival, you will be left outside and the doors will be shut. Well, a few days ago, my mother told me a cousin of mine came from a very faraway country and he was going to my house in 2 days. Well, I warned her I wouldn't be able to receive them because I would be working. And for reference, I work from home. Plus, I didn't wish to dedicate any time to them because my cousin didn't give me the dignity of knowing he was coming to the country beforehand. I mean, I didn't even know he had been around for like a week. I told my mother, do not come. I will not open the door. I'm really sorry, but no. Well, long story short, they came to my door anyways, and I saw my mother and my father and cousin in the security camera, and I heard them calling me. So I let them sit there under the sun for half an hour until they gave up and finally left. It is incredibly important for me that my word is respected. If I said don't come to my house, my wishes need to be respected or you will be left outside. I love my family and friends, but they need to respect me. This whole I show up first and I tell you later culture is way beneath me. So seriously, am I the jerk for enforcing this personal rule? Because at this point, I'm not sure if I made the wrong choice. No, you're not the jerk for one sole reason alone. You told your mom ahead of time you don't want this and she completely ignored it. And that, in my opinion, is the entire reason why this is messed up. Because you know what? I'm right there with you. I don't like people dropping in unannounced. I would much rather have them tell me they're coming so I can be prepared for them instead of them showing up out of nowhere and being like, okay, here I am, drop what you're doing and take care of me. Like, no, that's super obnoxious. And in my opinion, I think your mom and the rest of your family were completely out of line. Would I be the jerk if I refused to give up a water fountain that the previous homeowners abandoned 4 years ago? Because right now they're demanding that I hand it over. And at this point, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, in September of 2021, we purchased a home that was built in 2019 and we moved in immediately. And the previous owners left a few things at the home, including a water fountain. Within the first month, the previous owner asked if they could collect the water fountain, and we said that was fine, but they never showed up. It's now March or April of 2025, literally 4 years later, and it's been sitting in our front yard ever since then. Over the last 2 years, I've been organizing, prepping, and designing my front garden where it will be incorporated into my design. I'm an avid gardener and I decided to redo the garden, but haven't yet planted anything, and it has taken me a while to actually get started for multiple reasons. The first year we were settling in, and the second year I had to learn about the seasons here in Florida, research native plants and the best planting times, amongst other things that had to go along with that. The most important reasons was because the house was built poorly and we had to repair an entire wall that was in the main section of the garden. So there's no point in me planting anything when we will be doing construction work. But after we finished the exterior part of the wall, winter started. The roof still needs repairs, but I have access to the area now. I planned on power washing, repairing, and planting the water fountain this weekend, but I got COVID and got delayed again. So I dismantled the fountain and relocated it to various places to be worked on. Well, suddenly the previous owner messaged my husband stating that he wants the water fountain back. It's his 45th anniversary soon, and it was his wife's 35th anniversary present, stating that he'll be by this weekend to get it. I told my husband to inform the previous owner that I'm no longer willing to part with it. Well, the previous owner states that it's not mine to part with, and he'll be by to pick it up. But it has been on our property for 4 years, and it's considered abandoned property after 30 days. We literally gave him the chance to pick it up, but they didn't do it. We are not a storage unit. I mean, what claim does he possibly have to come and get it? I understand that it was an anniversary gift, but clearly he didn't care enough to get it in the last 4 years. The house was brand new, but terribly built by the previous owner. Everything that could have been wrong is wrong. The roof is missing edge pieces, subfloor is uneven, causing the entire floor to be uneven with gaps in all of the wood. The entire house needs new siding because they installed the hardy board incorrectly and it's now falling off. There's 4 different colors and textures of caulk used in the backsplash of the kitchen. Screws were popping out of every single wall in the house, and the studs aren't even 16 inches on the center. And trust me, the list goes on and on. We literally have to rebuild the house from the bottom up. And before you ask, yes, we had an inspector, but no, he didn't catch any of these things. We're also trapped in the house because we bought it during a time when the interest rates were very low. So moving isn't an option. And trust me, we would if we could. So seriously, am I the jerk for not giving up the water fountain literally 4 years after he sold us a terribly built house? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This honestly is insane. You mean to tell me after 4 years, this guy's suddenly like, hey, by the way, I haven't talked to you in almost half a decade, but now I'm gonna come and get that stupid fountain out of your way. Sorry about that. It's like, no, dude, you're not getting it. This is mine now, you abandoned it, and we are not a storage facility, so good luck with that. And that honestly is the case. I can't imagine ever handing that over to that guy, because the way he's acting is super entitled and you have no reason to hand it over if you don't want to. An entitled Karen causes an accident, literally all because she couldn't wait in line because she was too impatient. So I decided to get my own petty revenge as someone who has dealt with this same thing several times by offering to the guy who got hit by this Karen all of my information so that they could nail this Karen for the idiot driver that she truly is. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have to make a left turn at an intersection where the line to make that turn backs up at least half a mile every workday. It's about a 15-minute wait when it's bad and about 10 minutes in normal traffic. A lot of people skip that line and cut off drivers who wait patiently to turn, and it gets hazardous when those same idiots literally force their way into the turn lane regardless of another vehicle already existing in that space. Early last week, some idiot literally just shouldered my car out of the way. They saw me, they heard my horn, they kept merging, and I thankfully avoided that accident and carried along with my day, although I was incredibly irritated. 3 days later, the same idiot tries the same thing on the truck behind me. A woman in a mid-sized sedan decided that she was getting in the left turn lane no matter what. Unfortunately for her, the lane she was merging into was already occupied by a full-size pickup, and she probably could have realized that if she looked where she was going, but she didn't. She hit the truck and of course it damaged her car. Nothing major, it honestly just knocked off her mirror. Now I watched the whole thing because that truck was directly behind me. Her head never turned, she was looking straight ahead as she collided with that truck. Something about her body language and the fact that she pulled out her phone to record the truck after the accident that she literally caused told me that she was a Karen, and I just knew she was going to lie her butt off to avoid any kind of fault. Well, this is where my tiny bit of petty revenge comes into play. I gave the truck driver my cell phone number, told him I saw all of it, and I offered to share my observations with the cops or insurance company. This was not the same car that almost hit me earlier in the week, but it was the same entitled BS attitude. The truck driver's insurance called me the next day, and I told them exactly what I saw. It was enough information to exonerate the truck driver and put the fault on that idiot Karen who definitely hit him. I don't know what happened after the call, and I honestly just don't really care, because I ended up getting my petty revenge against one of those idiot drivers. Man, I know exactly what you're feeling right now because I've had that exact scenario happen to me. You're in a turning lane, you're trying to figure your crap out, and lo and behold, these people come out of nowhere and just cut right in front of you and ignore all traffic laws in front of them. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You're gonna get somebody hurt and you're gonna get in an accident. And then my rates are gonna go up for my car insurance, and it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? That is so annoying. So good for you for doing the right thing and saying that you will be available to help this guy out, because what that lady did was completely unacceptable and she deserved to get punished. Am I the jerk for having cops at my dad's house, all while I move out and try to get my things? Because recently he's been acting very unhinged, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad has never liked my significant other and literally can't give me a reason why. 3 days ago, he kicked me, my 8-month-old daughter, and my husband out after an altercation between my dad and husband. 2 days prior to this, my dad threatened my husband for something I did and assumed my husband did not hear his threats. Then 2 days later, he makes one of his awful remarks at my husband, and literally at that moment, everything just breaks loose. Now, things did not get physical, but they were about to before I stepped in between them. My husband then threatened my dad, and then we got kicked out. Now, 9 months ago, just before I gave birth, my dad begged us to move from another state and live with him. He wanted us to have time to save some money and get our bearings as new parents. But I was reluctant knowing my dad, and just how abrasive he is, and didn't think it was a good idea. He insisted things would be fine, and we decided to give it a chance, knowing how helpful it would be to not have rent literally looming over us as we welcomed our new daughter into the world. Ever since we arrived, my dad has been nothing but rude to my husband. Without diving deep into the details, this has left my husband feeling extremely uncomfortable and walking on eggshells to keep the peace. At 6 months postpartum, my husband agreed to quit working and instead let me go back to work, which I really wanted. He was going to stay at home with the baby, and after a few months, he would move closer to his parents, who are retired and would help us with childcare. That way, we can both work and it can kind of work out. About a month ago, we let my dad know we'd be moving out and relocating 2 hours north where my in-laws live. And this caused a really big argument between my dad and myself, where he called me names and told me it was my fault he would have to sell his house. And keep in mind, we haven't been paying rent, despite every attempt every month we've been there to give him money. Ever since then, tensions have been growing. My dad has always made quite a bit of noise when my daughter has been sleeping, and she is not a great sleeper as it is. And we're up every 2 hours with her all night since birth. Needless to say, my husband and I are exhausted, and we are over him waking her up. 5 days ago at 6 o'clock in the morning, he is in the kitchen slamming cabinets shut and woke the baby up. I start work at 6 in the morning, and usually my husband will take care of all the baby's needs while I'm working, even though I'm home. The baby is quite particular at this age and wants me to do the soothing, so I had my husband move my mouse in the office while I put her to sleep. But the noise continued, and I hit my breaking point and slammed the door. Well, this set my dad off, and he was screaming threats towards my husband, assuming that he slammed the door. When my husband heard these threats, he wanted to leave immediately. After fighting with him all day to bide our time and stick to the plan for moving, he agreed he wouldn't say or do anything towards my dad, and we were just gonna leave in peace. Well, that is until 2 days later, when my dad made an awful comment at my husband, and my husband just unglued. My dad expected me to leave my husband then and there for disrespecting him in his house. Because I told him that was out of the question and stated that he made threats first, he made me and my daughter leave as well. He gave me 45 minutes to collect my things and leave. And you know what? We just left. Today, I let him know that we would be by Saturday to get the rest of our things, and also asked if we could leave for a couple of hours so that conflicts didn't continue. He told me he wouldn't let me get my stuff with my husband's help, as apparently he was not welcome back in the house. Then he told me that because I won't leave him, it was my fault that we would no longer have a relationship, and he wouldn't have a relationship with my daughter. I told him that I would be there on Saturday with a police police officer, and I will collect whatever I can in the 15 to 30 minutes that I have. Keep in mind, my husband is a very kind and gentle man. He has never been awful towards me, never made me question his loyalty, and until a few days ago, has never been disrespectful towards my family. I mean, seriously, I've never even seen him be physical or aggressive towards anyone until then. I'm very hurt with my husband for going against what he promised me and haven't shared much words with him in a few days. However, I understand there's only so much one can take before they lose it. Regardless, his actions did lead to this. That being said, I'm having a hard time forgiving my dad for literally kicking me out like that, especially with an 8-month-old baby, and for him making threats to begin with, and ultimately for the cruel things he's saying and doing to me. So am I the jerk for wanting to have a cop there when I get my stuff? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all, and honestly, I think you're making the right choice. Your dad is being completely unhinged and it's not fair. Like seriously, he's being really rude and he's treating you and your husband like garbage. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing because the way he's acting is super toxic. My entitled brother fakes a mental illness just to milk my parents of their retirement savings. And after years of putting up with this garbage, the truth finally comes out. And I've never been more angry and disappointed in anyone in my life. Here's what happened. So I grew up in a middle-class family in a low-income area. My parents had a tendency to spoil my older brother far more than me, mostly because I was the quiet one who never spoke up. This resulted in my brother getting his way more often than me. It was nothing blatant, but it was enough to give him an entitlement complex a mile wide. When my brother was a teenager, he struggled with some serious mental illnesses. These were absolutely legitimate, and they did cripple his ability to function for several years. My parents were obviously very concerned for him, and so they willingly paid top dollar for the best psychiatrist and psychologist that they could find to help him. By the time I was ready to go to a different city to start university, my brother was at a stage where he was ready to go as well. It was then decided that he would go to a university in the same city as me, and we would live together. My parents offered to pay for our rent all the way through university, so us flatting together obviously made a lot of financial sense for them. We would have to pay for everything else out of our student loans. Everything was set. We had found a good student flat, settled in, and everything was just there. He had a new care team in this new city. Unfortunately, my brother had an episode on his first day that resulted in him not going to class. This meant that he was removed from his program with the option of starting again in the second semester. Now, the obvious, logical, and sensible thing to do in that situation is for my brother to go home while I found a roommate to take the spare bedroom and he could move back up and try again next semester. But my brother didn't like that idea. You see, he always hated living at home. He would always whine about how old our house was or how poor our neighborhood looked. Our neighborhood was lovely, by the way. There was a great sense of community and I always loved it there. But he felt that he deserved better. The next thing we knew, his new psychologist was written a letter to my parents stating that it would be a good idea to allow him to stay living in the new city, to allow him to acclimate to his surroundings. My parents followed this advice and allowed him to stay. They replaced his weekly loan amount with an allowance of the same value and thought everything would move forward from there. This worked for a few weeks, but my brother started to hound my parents for more money. You see, he wasn't a student, so in his mind, why should he have to live like a student? No instant noodles and TV dinners for him. He wanted steak and lamb for dinner. He wanted to go to nice restaurants with his friends and go shopping whenever he felt like it. He wanted a new iPhone and a new MacBook because his was slow. And it's at this point I saw just how entitled my brother could be, as he started to do something that I honestly never thought he would do. My parents eventually gave in and doubled his allowance. Second semester rolls around and my brother hasn't even bothered enrolling. My parents weren't happy, but his psychologist writes him another letter and so it continues. Fast forward 3 years and I am graduating with a job offer from my university in my field. The apartment is nice and convenient to my new job, so I continue to live there, only now I pay for my half of the rent and utilities. My brother is still not working or studying, and his allowance is now almost equal to my salary. Every time my parents try to force him home, his psychologist writes another letter, and my parents' trust in my brother's care team was high. They did save his life after all. By this point, my parents are just paying for his half of the utilities directly on top of his allowance. I suggested to my parents to get a second medical opinion, as he had been seeing this psychologist almost weekly for 3 years with no improvement. But my brother flat out refuses. He likes her. She apparently speaks to his soul, or whatever that means. About a year and a half after I graduate, our landlord decides to sell the apartment and the new owners want to live there. This is is a normal thing that happens, and I'm not really bothered by this. I wanted to take the opportunity to live at my own place. I have a serious girlfriend whom I want to eventually marry, so I would like my own place that she could one day move into. And I also just generally wanted to move on with my adult life. But my parents didn't want my brother living on his own just yet. And again, he is refusing to come home. They beg me to stay for just one more year while they figure out an arrangement for him. We did get a rather short notice to move, so I can understand this, and one more year won't really matter too much to me, to be completely honest. So apartment hunting we go, and my brother goes fully off the entitlement deep end. He will only view apartments well outside our price range. Anything within budget is either too old or too small, or just too dark and ugly. He wants a new modern apartment in an expensive suburb right smack dab in the heart of the city. His psychologist writes another letter outlining the importance of a comfortable environment for him. My parents cave once again and agree to pay his rent for his dream apartment for us, but I can't afford half of the new rent. They compromise with me, and I only have to pay the same rent as I paid before, which was barely 1/3 of the new rent at this new place. It was a beautiful apartment, so I was okay with the deal even though I wasn't happy. Unfortunately, my brother is now used to getting everything that he wants or needs. He starts asking me to pay for more and more of his groceries. Idiot me thinking that my mom and dad had cut down on his allowance now that the rent is so expensive, agreed to take up some of the slack, and that was a big mistake. They were still giving him the same amount. He just wanted more. He starts asking for more and more things, and then whines to his mom when I don't give it to him. My parents cave over and over again and get him whatever he wants. A new computer, a new MacBook, a new phone. I mean, he even got a new car. Up until this point, my parents could afford all of this and still save something for their retirement. My mom was completely honest with me about their finances, as when the time came, the power of attorney would transfer to me, so she wanted me to know where they stood. They were on track for a long, comfortable retirement, but then my dad unfortunately lost his job through very unusual circumstances. His company just straight up disappeared, and his boss left the country. This messed my dad up for quite a while, and he decided it was time to kick back and enjoy an early retirement. He was only 2 years short of retirement age anyways. My brother was furious. He would rage about how dad had betrayed him for not continuing to work to fund his lifestyle. He would regularly yell at my mom over the phone, saying that he expects them to continue to support him because he deserves the security of the lifestyle that he has earned. I laughed my butt off at that line, which turned into another long fight, but was totally worth it. I knew that without dad's income, my parents couldn't afford the rent where we lived, so I decided to force the issue and I moved out on my own. I had hoped that this would result in my brother's moving as well, but alas, his psychologist wrote another letter and he continued to live there. I moved on with my life. I got married, I went back to university, I bought a house, I did grown-up stuff. 5 years go by and I have virtually no contact with my brother. I'm visiting my parents one day, and when I take them out for lunch, my mom breaks down crying because she can't pay. It turns out my brother had been blackmailing my parents to continue to support him, saying that if they didn't, he would end up homeless and it would be all their fault. He still had the support of his medical team, and my parents didn't know what to do. He had burned through nearly 20 years worth of retirement savings since I moved out. My parents were both forced to go back to work to try and stretch out their retirement savings. I decided to visit this psychologist myself, only to find out that she's one of those people that will tell people exactly what they want to hear so that they keep getting money. And it's very predatory, and it was enabling my brother because he was now a cash cow for her. Our family was furious. Turns out my brother had been recovered since his first year living away from home. He was perfectly able to work or study. He just didn't want to. And so she wrote him those bogus letters just to let him get away with it. He decided to milk my parents of their savings to fund his lifestyle because apparently he had earned it, and they owed him for not giving him what he wanted when he was younger. When confronted about it, he was entirely unapologetic. As far as he was concerned, he was entitled to everything he got and then some. It's been a few years since then, and my parents have completely cut him off. They are surviving, but within a few years, I will probably end up having to support them. I have no issue with this. I'm their son, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do so, but it breaks my dad's heart knowing this. He grew up dirt poor and worked his butt off to provide for us, only to see it all disappear because of my selfish brother. The psychologist had their license suspended after my parents laid a complaint. I don't know if it was temporary or not, but I hope it was permanent. As for my brother, he works a dead-end retail job with a live-in boyfriend who pays for almost everything. He is still an entitled jerk, and I only see him during Christmas. I just want to emphasize that my brother had legitimate mental health issues. I do not want to take away from that at all. He just chose to willfully deceive everyone about the severity in order to demand that everyone else give him the life that he deserves. And before you ask, no, his mental illness did not contribute towards this attitude. It's not that sort of illness. My brother is just an entitled jerk. Wow, that is honestly awful. I can't imagine the turmoil your parents are going through. Like seriously, their entire life savings has just been taken away by their spoiled son who just took it from them, and willingly at that. I mean, it's so bad first off that the psychiatrist was acting that way and just writing notes and letters just to get more money out of this family, but it's also so horrible that the original poster's brother would be willing to do this to their parents. I mean, you have to have some serious lack of morals to let that happen in your life. But you know what? At least everybody now knows the truth, and this brother is basically ostracized from the family. And hopefully, for the sake of the original poster's family, their mom and dad are able to have some semblance of a retirement, even though the original poster's brother basically took that away from them. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. 2 cashiers are hassled by 2 different Karens in the same day, all while I'm trying to go to the supermarket and get my groceries. And I'm still incredibly shocked by this level of entitlement. Here's what happened. So in the country that I live in, it's common for people to do one big shopping trip per month right after they get paid. I'm not sure how it works in other countries, but just to let you know, during the first week of the month, it's impossible to go to the supermarket without knowing that you'll have to wait at least an hour in line, and that's on a good day. So people are naturally irritable and very nervous already. So here it goes. I was shopping for my house, and my dad was shopping for his. My siblings were all with my dad. We finished our shopping, and when it was time to pay, we split up into 2 different checkout lines. I went to a regular line, and my dad went to a priority service line. Now, my sister has Asperger's and cerebral palsy, which you would hardly notice due to years of physiotherapy. My other brother also has a different degree of autism, which is the more common type where you see kids not eating, refusing to speak, having an angry outburst, and so on. It's not as severe as him not being able to speak, but if something bothers him, he has rage outbursts that honestly, if I were in my parents' place, I wouldn't have the patience to deal with. So there we were, me in the right checkout line and my dad is in the left one. My line was much longer, with about 5 full shopping carts ahead of me, but my dad's line only had 2, and he was the last one in his line. I don't know who was the first person since I didn't pay attention, but then a few minutes later, I saw a woman with fire in her eyes approaching my dad's shopping cart. She was with her husband and a baby carriage with a very young child, maybe 6 months old or less. Even though there was no one behind my dad and both lines were long, she parked the baby carriage right next to his, almost pushing my siblings who were standing there. When she saw my little brother sitting in a milk crate inside the cart, her anger didn't go away. She just had to find another victim. She couldn't scream at my dad anymore, so she looked ahead and saw the couple. It was a couple with a younger daughter around 6 years old. They had a very full shopping cart, more than most people, and they were starting to scan their items. Karen number 1 then started complaining to my dad, still standing beside the couple, leaving her husband uncomfortably behind, about how there were people who go where they shouldn't, and that they shouldn't be shopping in that line. Then the woman had a rage outburst, pushing my sister aside and intervening between her and the family, demanding that they leave, saying they shouldn't even be allowed there. The cashier, the poor thing, was taken aback, as well as the family, and half the people there were watching the scene. She demanded that they leave and call the manager to demonstrate how absurd it was. The family offered to move to another line, but at that moment, the manager arrived and allowed the family to proceed with their shopping, informing the woman that she should wait. This entitled Karen went berserk. She returned to the baby carriage and started yelling and talking to my dad about it. She then tried to incite my dad to do something about it too. Her husband was quiet in the line, and my dad just nodded and tried to change the subject. And it's right about then that I decided to intervene, as I simply couldn't take this anymore. I said to her, "Look, my mom always taught me to never do that. It's extremely rude after all. How can you know if someone has a disability or not? My sister has autism, but she doesn't have a sign hanging on her. You would never know. So out of politeness, don't scream at people." Karen number 1 looks at me and says, "They don't have anything." At this point, she seemed embarrassed, not as much as my poor sister, who by this point looked like a tomato. The Karen completely went insane by my comment, and I swear I made it in a polite manner. I don't like arguing with people like that, but that woman was extremely loud and disruptive. She started screaming and getting angry, took out her phone and shoved it in the cashier's face, filming everything, yelling that she was going to take everyone to court and that it was absurd, and that she was going to report it to the owners and all that talk. Then, when she realized her gesture wasn't getting her anywhere, she stormed off angrily and went to another checkout line. By the way, she went to the business checkout, where it's for people buying with business numbers, but somehow they allowed her to go through, I guess just to avoid any more drama. The cashier was visibly nervous. I felt really sorry for her, so I continued scanning my items anyways because my line was moving faster. One thing to note, in the right checkout line, I was basically with my back to my dad, facing the checkout on the other side. Then something caught my attention when a woman exclaimed out loud the word "what," and she basically screamed it at this point. The cashier on my right was serving an elderly couple, while behind them in line there was a mother who is Karen number 2 of this story, as well as her teenage daughter. The cashier repeated herself, and this time I heard her say that it might take a little bit longer because they were having a problem. Karen number 2 then said, "Did I ask you for something? Why are you telling me this?" The right cashier says, "Ma'am, I was just informing you." And before they could even continue any further, this second Karen cut them off. "I don't want to know. I didn't ask you for anything. Just do your job." The cashier didn't really know what to do, so she repeated that she was just letting them know it might take a little bit longer, and the woman went absolutely crazy. This second Karen was incredibly hostile, I would definitely say, while Karen number 1 just seemed crazy. I honestly would have been interested to see a fight between the two of them. The cashier looked at the manager who was behind me and then at me. I just shrugged and laughed because the situation was so surreal. I heard this Karen insulting and cursing the cashier to her daughter, but I didn't pay much attention, and I couldn't hear it clearly. But the cashier just smiled a little and continued her work. When I went to help my dad pack his things, I talked to the cashier who was filmed, and she admitted that she was shaking. My siblings and I laughed about the situation and tried to lighten the mood. In the end, she said something that was really nice. She said, "It's so nice to serve nice people after that. I was almost about to quit because I was so nervous, and I don't know how to handle this." We comforted her and then we left. Neither Karen 1 nor Karen 2 had left yet, and maybe this wasn't even the end of the story, but it was what I could see. And it was basically 2 Karens, one on each side, all in less than 10 minutes. And honestly, I really think that has to be a record. That is crazy that you would see 2 Karens at one time, both of them being incredibly snotty and snobbish in the checkout line. Like, first off, they need to chill out. Just be patient and wait your turn. Like, are you really in that big of a rush? I bet all they were gonna do when they checked out and left the store was go home and just sit on their phone. It's not like they have some important meeting to get to, like, come on. So good for the original poster for being the nice customer that all of us want to be. Those cashiers did not deserve to get treated that way, and the fact that you were kind to them and showed some level of comfort really does make a huge difference. My wife has become very depressed after she sent $25,000 to a scammer behind my back, and now I seriously don't know what to do. My wife of 8 years fell victim to a scam. In this scam, she sent roughly $25,000 to the scammer, who promised to transfer $10 million to her, and this was all so that she could help some people in Africa. So it was well intended, but she did not seek my counsel initially. After she sent $6,000, she then approached me and I pointed out the red flags in the story. She prayed about it and felt that God had told her it was the right thing to do, and this became a point of contention in our marriage for the last 3 months. She opened and maxed out 2 credit cards to keep it from me. She never lied to me when I asked her about it, but certainly avoided telling me the truth. This bled into our normal lives as well. She used to call and text me about her days, as well as about things that she has questions about. But now she's withdrawn from me, except for the day-to-day items that she needs to keep the family running. I honestly feel similar to having been cheated on, but it just feels more like a financial affair. I obviously have trust issues when it comes to money with her. I've opened separate accounts and taken her name off of my credit cards. There isn't anything left of our savings, including our emergency savings. I have cut my spending back tremendously. I used to eat out twice a week and bring food from home the other 3 days. But now, if I'm ever gonna eat out, I only bring food from home. I haven't bought a new video game in the last 3 months. This has impacted my life and limited what I can do. I understand that she is who I married and have no interest in divorce. I accept this hardship that she brought upon us. I just want to move beyond this and grow back together. This brings me to the point that I'm writing for advice advice about. She told the scammer she isn't sending any more money. They are still in communication, but the scam is starting to fall apart. My wife is becoming more and more depressed as it does. She says this gave her a lot of purpose in her life. I want to comfort her and do whatever I can to bring her out of her depression. I know that time will be my best friend, but I also know that I can do things to help out. But I'm still so angry at her for spending our entire savings and racking up credit card debt. How can I comfort her without condoning her actions? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, I have so many questions. My first one being, why is she still in contact with the scammer? I mean, she's gotta know that this is a scam by this point, right? Like, it's all falling apart. She's seeing the dots get connected, and she's recognizing that, wait a second, this really is a bad thing. And sure, she's depressed and she feels guilty and all this other stuff, but if she really wants to find any kind of reconciliation about this, she needs to cut off this scammer like right away. This person stole $25,000 from her. She depleted your savings and maxed out some credit cards. If she wants to feel good about herself and start to climb out of this depressive episode, she needs to cut off communication with this person, because this person is not trying to help them. They are preying upon her kindness and her generosity just to try and suck more money out of your pockets. And you know what? I would be upset as well. I would be furious if my partner betrayed my trust like that, because there are so many reputable ways to actually help people locally in your community where you will know exactly where your money's going, and you won't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in the process just to participate in those activities. Like, she made a life-changing financial decision behind your back. That is messed up on so many levels. So hopefully the two of you can figure this one out, because from the sounds of it, your wife messed up big time, and she needs to cut off this scammer right away if she ever wants to find help. An entitled Karen claims that she knows our prices better than we do, forcing me to scan and rescan all of her items at checkout, insisting that I was intentionally trying to mess up her order just so she wouldn't get the correct deals. And I've never been treated this way in customer service, and I'm so glad I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So I was working yesterday, the day after Christmas, which I wouldn't normally be bothered about, but it was the first day of a giant sale going on in the store I work in. And I mean, it was giant. Items that were $3.95 instead of being upwards of $15. Items that were 50% off and 75% off. This was big. It only happens twice a year, so people tend to go crazy when this happens. The store was insanely busy, and we had too many people call out to monitor customers. So when our store should have only held 40 people, there were probably about 60 to 70 customers at any given point. So I was told to hop on a register to help control the line, as I'm usually pretty quick about getting people through and have become a master at the whole customer service voice and sucking up to people that come along. Well, as usual, I log into the point of sale system and call out to the customers that I can help whoever's next. This older lady comes up to the counter and places her basket on it. I reach out my hand to grab the first product in it when this other lady, we'll call her the entitled Karen of this story, snatches the basket away and literally shoved it back at the first lady and waved her back to the line. The entitled Karen said, "Excuse me, I was next. Did she call you by name? I didn't hear her say your name, which means I was next. Yeah, that's right, get back in line, because she didn't call your name, I was next. I have places to be and I have an appointment soon." And at this point, I was already dreading this transaction. I've been working retail long enough to know exactly who is going to be an easy customer and who is absolutely not going to be. My manager, by the name of Charlie, that's not their real name, who was working the point of sale system next to me, gave me a look implying that they knew what was about to go down. Putting on my best face of trying to be nice, I greet her and I say, "Hello, did you find everything okay?" The entitled Karen doesn't even answer me and literally just stares at me. She doesn't have a basket and isn't holding anything. I look around the counter in front of me to see if she had already placed something down and I might have missed it, but I didn't. The Karen pointed to the other end of the counter and made some kind of impatient gesture to my coworker and tapped her foot until her two baskets were brought over to me. I was already done with her, so I scanned everything as quickly as possible, just dropping her things in her bag instead of neatly placing them in like I usually do. The entitled Karen was glaring daggers at the pin pad in front of her as I was ringing everything up. I just assumed that she finally realized just how much she was buying, but boy was I absolutely wrong. I told the entitled Karen her total amount, and it was around $80. It wasn't too bad for our store, considering that this probably would have cost around $150 to $200. She points to something on the pin pad and snaps at me. The entitled Karen says, "Why is this one $8.25? It should be 75% off." So I double check check the item. Maybe I rang it up wrong. It's not unusual for this to happen, especially with how many deals we run at once. But it is in fact a 50% off item and not 75% off. So I tell her just that. She doesn't take that for an answer. She says to me, "No, I got all my things from the 75% off tower. It's supposed to be 75% off." I explained to her, "Miss, I understand that, but somebody must have put this back in the wrong place. It's a bit confusing because this collection is split between 50% off and 75% off towers. Half of it is on one side and the other half is on the other. Another customer must have just forgotten which tower they got it from and put it back on the wrong one. I promise what it's ringing up as is the correct price." The entitled Karen screeches, "No, I got it from the right half of the store, not the left. That means it's 75% off. Either adjust the price or I don't want it." I put it in the basket we have behind the counter for unwanted items. Clearly, this entitled Karen doesn't understand how barcodes work, and I don't have the authority to price adjust anything like that. And I'm definitely not going to keep arguing with her about this. This happens for another 2 products, all literally from the same collection, with me explaining that half are 50% off and the other half are 75% off. But she's getting more and more annoyed. And then we get to the full price items. And by this point, she is absolutely fuming. I try to explain that because she got these items from off the wall and not on a tower somewhere on the floor, that means they're full price, but part of the buy 3 get 1 free deal, but she isn't having it. This entitled Karen says, "But it's your big sale. It should be at least 50% off." Mind you, she hasn't even bought anything 50% off yet. Only the 75% off or the items that are marked $3.95. She goes on to say, "I thought these would be $3.95. No ma'am, only the products on the first table are that price. You got these ones off the wall in the second room. The second room doesn't even have any deals right now." And it's right about then that she said the magic words, "Where's your manager? I want to speak to your manager right now." I raise an eyebrow and point directly next to me, where Charlie has been listening this entire time. She's gone through 6 customers by now and is also getting annoyed just listening to this entitled Karen. Charlie finishes up her transaction and turns to me and the Karen. The entitled Karen says, "These aren't ringing up correctly. I got everything off the 75% off table." Once again, Charlie says everything that I already did. Someone must have put it back wrong. It was off the wall, blah, blah, blah. But the Karen is now arguing with her. The Karen says, "I know where I got everything." Charlie then says, "I was just up there a few minutes ago putting this product out. Like I explained and like how my friend here explained, this collection is split between 2 towers." Charlie then proceeds to list off exactly what parts of the collection are on the 50% off table and which are on the 75% off table. Something that I wasn't quite sure about, so I never mentioned it to the Karen. So this Karen then says, "Fine, if it isn't 75% off or $3.95, then I don't want it. Take it off." So I do just that. I take off everything that isn't what she wants, take the products out of her bag, and put them behind me. I tell her the new total, which is about $35, and ask if she's paying with cash or a card. Her eyes narrow. Oh no, she isn't done yet. The entitled Karen then screeches, "Are those green ones still in there?" I check her bag and there's no green product. I turn around and look through the unwanted basket, pulling out a few teal items. "Is it these ones that you're looking for?" She then says, "Yes, I actually want those. Green is my favorite color." First of all, these items are body products. You know, something you smell. It doesn't really matter what color they are, as long as you like what it smells like. I have a really bad feeling that in an hour or 2, I'm gonna have this lady back in my store complaining about wanting a refund. Second of all, these are full price items. I really don't want to have to go through this whole thing all over again. I say to her, "Miss, are you sure? This collection is full price, the ones off the wall." She says, "Yes, I like green. I get those too." So I ring her up again, and the total again comes out to about $60. She eventually pays with card, and while she's waiting for it to load, she grabs the bag from behind the counter and lifts it up. It's important to note that because she originally had so much product at first, I was handed a large bag, which would be double bagged, with a board in the bottom for extra support, so it wouldn't rip as easily. And even though there's a giant sale right now, we never seem to run out of large bags. The Karen, of course, noticed this extra detail. She says to me, "Can I have an extra bag?" I'm a bit distracted with the long receipt printing out, and I tell her not to worry, it's double bagged, everything should be fine, and she didn't buy any glass. The entitled Karen then says, "No, a small bag." I look at her and I say, "Oh, the cellophane bags? Sure, but just to let you know, we only have the skinny bags and not the large bags. I can give you a big stack of them though, if you want." The Karen then says, "No, a small bag." I look up and I see her pointing at the bag that she's holding. holding? Oh, she wanted a paper store bag. Why? They're so ugly, and that's what the cellophane is for, specifically for gift wrapping. I look over to Charlie for help because I don't have any small bags at my station right now, and neither does she. Charlie shakes her head and mutters to me that we don't have enough to do that today. I say to her, "I'm sorry, miss, we can't do that today. We are already running low on bags as it is." The Karen then says, "Okay, then I'll just give you back this extra one that I already have." I go on to say to her that it's doubled bag large for support, and that if she only has one, the bag may rip open and spill everywhere. The Karen then responds and says, "I'll just give you the large bag for a small bag. I want a small bag." But again, I say it slowly, "Ma'am, I can't do that today. Look, there's one right there behind you. I'll just take that one." I look behind me and I see what bag she's talking about. She's right. There's an open and used bag on the counter. It's open and used and not put away because someone's product exploded inside of it. I give Charlie a look, who rolls her eyes, grabbed the used bag, and practically shoved it towards the Karen. The Karen says, "Thanks. God, that's all I wanted. Have a blessed one." The second she was out of earshot, Charlie turned to me and congratulated me on keeping my cool. If I didn't desperately need the money, I would have 100% risked my job to scream and cuss her out. I then lived in fear for the rest of my shift that she would come back in and I would have to put up with her all over again. That entitled Karen was seriously obnoxious. Like, there's no reason to act like that at the checkout. Just get your stuff and leave. She was being so specific over stuff that was already on sale. Like, seriously, you couldn't just get your stuff and get out? Like, nobody wants to be there in the first place. The place is already swarming with customers as it is. Like, how can you not go up to the front desk and have some semblance of sympathy towards their situation? Like, think about it for a second. They have to deal with all these customers as well as all these nuanced prices that honestly could get very confusing. I mean, I know that if that was me, there's no way I would get any of that right. I would be looking at my manager the entire day, trying to figure out what these customers want, as well as trying to navigate all these sales that are going on. Like, honestly, that's a tricky job in and of itself. Anyone who says that it's not is completely foolish. Like, seriously, you've never worked retail if you want to say that. It is honestly just so embarrassing watching people act like this in a store. I mean, not only was she not called up to this one window, but she also literally pushed some lady away and was like, "No, they didn't call your name, they called my name." Like, lady, what are you talking about? That is insane to me. Here you have a packed store and there's so many people all over the place. Like, this place is crawling with people. There's about 30 more customers than what they're used to at their max. And you've got this weird entitled Karen screaming in your face over like $4 items that probably are really cheap to begin with. I can honestly say that the original poster is way more patient than I am. There's no way I would have been that patient. I would have lost my cool and had to have walked away well before dealing with that lady. She was rude from the get-go. She was hyper aggressive about everything. She clearly just wanted to get the most money possible and cause the most damage to pretty much whoever was in front of her. So seriously, good for the original poster for keeping their cool, because what they dealt with was honestly completely unacceptable. And in no situation is that entitled Karen's actions ever justified. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. Today, I messed up by accidentally starting a cult. Here's what happened. So to start things out, this happened 15 years ago. I was living with my best friend and his family at the time. I was working full-time and going to school full-time, and he was just getting his business off the ground. My friend is absolutely brilliant. He's got a master's degree in some specialized engineering and can design robots and specialized parts for multi-million-dollar machines. His wife has a master's in accounting and maths and can do math that's miles above what I can even imagine. They are two of the most intelligent people I know, and yet they are pretty dumb. They've nearly fallen for rent scams, email phishing, and charity scams, as well as a few other very obvious blatant scams. I love them to death, but they are the type of people that need a lot of support just to get through things. They are also the nicest people I know. They have hearts of gold, regularly giving their time and money to helping people in need, even though their family and friends have helped them realize that they need to give less money when they have huge debts. Because of this, they are surrounded by a group of amazing people. They have a very strong group of support. They both come from large, extended families who remain close, and they have tons of wonderful friends. They have helped me so much over the years. I would do anything to help them too. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call them John and Sarah. And obviously, these are fake names. John and Sarah were part of a pretty large church. I attended regularly, but I largely was on the outside outside looking in. Life kept me busy too. John and Sarah had been part of that church for their whole lives. Their parents had both been going there since before they were born. It was a regular church. The people were all nice and they ran a lot of programs that helped people leaving domestic violence, and they held regular offerings in order to help members of the community who were also really struggling. If the church found out that someone in the town has lost a family member, they would reach out and make sure the family had food, clothing, support, and whatever else they needed. So everything was going really well. One day I was at the church and the church announced that the pastor was leaving. That wasn't a surprise to anyone. He was old and his two sons had both moved back to Europe, so his heart was overseas already. I didn't think much of it, but it started a chain reaction that made a lot of the attendees uncomfortable. I saw some political maneuvering happening in the church, and eventually the church named the new pastor a social worker who had just finished seminary. The new pastor had been attending their whole lives and was mostly tolerated by everyone. They were a member of the New Democratic Party, which has become a very left-wing party and began using the pulpit to spread very political messages. The church elders sincerely believed that the new pastor was the right choice in leading the church body down a path to reconciliation with the indigenous peoples, but quite honestly didn't realize they should have consulted us first. That's where the first rift started. The indigenous members of the congregation began to push back against some of the white savior messaging, and it spiraled from there. Within about 18 months, the church was split. Some were supporting the new pastor, other groups had held on to some right-wing garbage, but most people just wanted to go back to doing what the church had always done, without any political distractions. And this is where James comes in. James had been attending for about a decade, and he stood out at every moment. He was tall, he was a beautiful man, he was incredibly articulate, he oozed quiet charisma. When the dude talked, people listened. He was one of the head managers at the regional industry. The guy literally had it all. He drove a fancy car, he had a nice house, he even married the nicest lady ever. He was well admired and well respected, but he struggled with reading people's social cues. I and many others wondered at points if he was a sociopath, but after getting to know him, he was probably a bit on the spectrum. James was one of the active voices during the split. People began flocking to him during the meetings, and he was getting more and more calls to lead various groups and ministries. He called people on their garbage and found himself getting ostracized by the very people attempting to play group politics. He took it hard, but kept doing what he was doing. John and Sarah were the biggest supporters of James. James was really good with John and eventually contracted John to work for the regional industry. John eventually asked James to mentor him, and James agreed. John and James became very close, with Sarah becoming really close with James's wife. They saw each other multiple times per week. They always seemed to be planning their next activity or talking about something work-related. I would join them on occasion, but mostly kept to my studies and work. We would all be eating together 2 to 3 times a week. Everyone got along fine. Even today, I'm not friends with James, but we still message each other if we need something. At one of these meals, they were talking about the new pastor's political ramblings all during the sermons, and that's about when I came up with the worst suggestion in history. I said, "Honestly, James, why don't you just do your own Sunday service?" I said it flippantly. I wasn't really speaking seriously, but Sarah loved the idea. She got so excited. Even John liked it. James wasn't opposed. I mean, it logically made sense. It was decided by the end of the meal that we were going to make a home church. We wouldn't separate from the main church, but we would let James lead a separate Sunday service from his living room. So we got to work, mainly James, and started to spread the word. First week, 6 people showed up, and the second week had 25 people in total. And overall, we started to get about 15 people coming each week. They were mostly the young adults from the church. I mean, they craved to have some kind of stability. It grew from there, and James started a men's group, and his wife started a women's group. We did group activities, we created our own mini activities, we did everything. I wasn't super involved, and I ended up leaving for about 2 to 3 months for work after everything had started up. I got an email during that time away asking to meet with the elders of the original church. They are super nice guys, and most of them are still good friends of mine, so I agreed to meet with them once I got back. At that meeting, they asked a lot of questions. They asked who was the spiritual leader of John, and I told them that James was. They asked me who John's emotional support was, and I also said James was as well. They asked me who John's financial support came from, and I told them the same thing. It was all James. I realized during that talk the mistake that we had made. John was completely reliant on James for everything. It wasn't just John either. There was about a dozen other people who were in the the exact same position. Their entire lives were dependent on one man, and that one man had the ability to completely destroy them. It went well beyond that too. There was no accountability. James had even begun moving a bunch of the young guys into his rental properties. He had one house for the young women and one house for the young men. Him and his wife would go there daily to guide them and help them. There were a bunch of other red flags that we had missed. I knew James pretty well at this point, and I knew he had done that to other people already. James had a temper and had no problem bringing consequences to people who crossed them. The first guy had done lazy work for James, and the second guy attempted to make some advances at James's daughter. Both relied on James for work and emotional support, and both found themselves out of work and ostracized from the community when they crossed James. The realization of how much power James had really scared me. James was a good guy, he still is, but there was too much control and influence in his hands without any accountability or checks in place. He ran a community by himself without anyone being able to stop him. I was legitimately afraid. I realized I screwed up in helping get this group off the ground. It wasn't wrong to have a group. It was wrong not to have safeguards in place. I talked to John and Sarah about it that evening, and John was about to brush it off, but the realization of how vulnerable they were freaked Sarah out to the point where she begged John to expand his business well beyond the industry contacts. John thankfully agreed with her, and that started a process in which they reestablished social connections beyond the group. I called James to set up a time to meet with him to confront him, but the elders had beat me to it. James was freaked out to realize he had accidentally started a cult, so he began the work to legitimize the group. The elders worked with him, and the group formally disconnected from the church and joined a denomination of churches to provide oversight and accountability. James kept the group going, but did it with support. The group is still going strong today. John and Sarah are still a part of it. James stepped back last year due to burnout, but is still part of it as well. I'm not a part of it, but I still am besties with John and Sarah. And James was even a groomsman at my wedding, with Sarah being a bridesmaid. But thankfully, we can all look back on it now and laugh at the time that we accidentally started a cult. Yeah, that's really scary. I can't imagine looking up one day and realizing what I accidentally started. Like, I'm sure nobody meant to start a cult, it just kind of happened out of nowhere. Like the stars aligned and then suddenly, bam, here's a cult. But at least they had the insight to say, wow, wait a second, this is not good. We need to adjust course like right now. Otherwise, this seriously could get out of hand. So good for the original poster, as well as pretty much everyone in this story, for having a good head on their shoulders, because under different circumstances and leadership, this could have ended very badly. An entitled father lets his son try to open my locker at a gym as a form of entertainment, just so he can then run off and go work out. And as a result, the craziest set of circumstances and unfolding of events happens right in front of me, and I've never been happier to escape a situation in my life. Here's what happened. So today, like most weekdays, I went to the gym. In said gym are locker rooms, where one can shower after getting all sweaty after lifting weights. I had just finished the dry portion of my workout, and I went down to the locker room. As a rule, I try and avoid spending time in the locker room. There's a whole bunch of nope in there. Just get in, do what I need to do, and then get out of there. Today, I unfortunately ran into one of the most blithely ignorant humans I have ever encountered in my life, as well as who I can presume to be his son. I managed to get the holy grail of lockers today, and I was very pleased to have it. It was number 69 for those curious. Yes, I am aware I'm a very overgrown child, and no, I refuse to apologize for this. So I just come down to the locker room as a sweaty and stinky mess, just trying to grab my bathing suit so I could change and do cardio in the pool. Unfortunately for my intentions, there was a man who was about my age, in his mid-30s, trying to get his son, who was about 8 years old, away from my locker. His son, however, had no intentions of going anywhere, and started to do one of those blood-curdling screeches that most nonverbal children do when they're upset. I'm a little puzzled why there's an enraged child trying to open my locker while this guy stands there just watching. So I wait for the man to disengage the child from my locker, and then I wearily approach and open it. This guy then goes, "Oh, thank God. I was afraid we wouldn't have this locker. He gets really upset when we don't get the locker that he likes." Now, if I didn't already have all my stuff in that locker and wasn't trying to get into the pool before my heart rate went down, I probably would have obliged him. But as things were, I wasn't having it. "Sorry, man, I kinda just need to change and get into the pool." I said that to him, and then I proceeded to get out of my sweaty clothes, jump into a bathing suit, and grab the stuff I need for the pool before shutting, locking, and scrambling the lock. I then ran away to swim about 500 meters and then soak for just a little bit. About 20 to 25 minutes later, I'm all done with my swim, and I feel rather noodly, as one does after a good swim, and I come back into the locker room where there's a familiar looking boy trying different combinations, trying to get into my locker, only there's no adult present, just the kid in the entire aisle of lockers making frustrated sounds every time the combination doesn't work, and it was right about then that I knew this was not going to be a normal interaction. Now, I'm angry on this kid's behalf, and honestly astounded that the guy thought this was the heads-up play. I'm also acutely aware of the consequences of even touching this kid, and something just possibly going wrong, so I promptly decided to pass that buck right along. So I called the front desk, and I explained the situation, and they promised a staff member would come over right away. Eventually, a male staff member comes in. I see him and I flag him down, and indicate that the kid is still valiantly attempting to brute force the lock to try and get my locker open. The staff member attempts to get the kid's attention, but that definitely did not work. The staff member then tries to pick the kid up and promptly gets his eardrums blown out by this kid's shriek. The staff member promptly puts the kid back on the ground and withdraws. He promises help is on the way. The kid then goes right back to trying different combinations. My gym is rather fancy. It includes not only a regular daycare, but a special needs daycare as well. Said special needs daycare staffer was actually concerned when the kid wasn't dropped off and wound up heading down to the locker room to retrieve the kid. So the first guy comes in and asks that everyone be aware a female staff member was entering the locker room itself, and this poor woman comes in staring at the floor. The first guy guides her over to the kid, and then she brings out her secret weapon, some sort of fidget toy. After a minute, the woman gets his attention and shows him the toy. The kid promptly takes the toy from the woman and makes not a peep when the woman scoops him up and carries him out. Meanwhile, I'm standing there dripping wet, thinking to myself, what just happened? The first guy has to unlock my locker for me because the kid's attempts to get the lock open had scrambled whatever I'd put in the first place, and then he asked me to come talk to the staff after I shower. I do just that, and then I'm brought up into the manager's office so I can relate what exactly happened. Midway through my story, a woman about bursts into the manager's office, frantically demanding to know where her son is. The manager calms the woman down enough to listen and asks her to take a seat, and her son will be brought right down. Then the manager grabs the phone to call someone and asks that the boy be brought to his mother in the manager's office. The mother begins to stress vomit words out. They weren't precisely coherent, but from what I could piece together, she went on to explain that the father dipped out on the mother as well as the son after it was found out that their son had special needs and was likely never to speak again. He wanted nothing to do with the kid. Time had passed by, and eventually the father reaches out, feeling guilty apparently, and starts taking the kid on weekdays every now and again. The mother actually gave the father money to take the kid to a petting zoo today, and the next thing she knows, this gym is calling her, saying they found her son all alone in a locker room and are having trouble locating the father, and she was listed as an emergency contact. The whole time this is playing out, I'm just standing here like, man, I just want to go home. Then the staff member from before enters the office with the kid, who is promptly reunited with his mother. The mother is overjoyed. I think the kid was happy too. It's kind of hard to tell. The staff member retreats, and I think to myself, for the love of God, take me with you. But that was wishful thinking. It was at this moment that a trainer who looks exactly like Ivan Drago is escorting the father into the office, looking at this dude like he's absolute scum. And that's when the shouting started to begin. The mother pops off and says, "How could you be so irresponsible? He is your son." The father then goes, "He was fine, perfectly happy standing there to try and open that jerk's locker," pointing straight at me. "You left him alone in the locker room?" "Listen, I needed to work out. None of this was my idea anyways. What difference does it make if we didn't go to that stupid petting zoo? It's all the same to that stupid kid." After a solid minute of shouting between both parties, the kid starts to screech, and both parents are going at it hammer and tongs. I catch the manager's eye and tip my head towards the door. She rolls her eyes but gives me a nod. And trust me, I wasted no time fleeing the scene. Yeah, the father in this story is an absolute idiot. You seriously just left your kid alone so you could work out, and you left him in a locker room where strange men come in and out that you don't know in the slightest. That's like saying, okay, go let anyone be your babysitter, have fun. And also, this guy knew for a fact that someone else was already using that locker. Like, why would you then let your kid go around and try and fiddle with the locks, possibly breaking something in the process? Like, this entitled father was really just completely out of line. I don't blame the mother for freaking out, as well as getting up in his face and telling him exactly how it is. You can't just say, hey, we're going to a petting zoo, and then suddenly be like, oh, just kidding, we're gonna go work out instead. That is incredibly inappropriate and there's no excuse for that. But honestly, I find this story really funny. This guy got wrapped up into something that he absolutely didn't want any part of. But in the end, he was able to escape that situation without catching any of the strays the mother was throwing around, which is a lot better than what this father could say. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. Am I the jerk for ditching my girlfriend at a 5K race because I wanted to get a better time and not have to walk the entire time? Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been together for about 2 years now. We do live together, and about 9 months ago, I picked up running as a hobby, and I have since grown quite fond of it. I currently run about an average of 25 miles a week. A few months ago, I decided I wanted to try a 5K or a 10K, and after some Google searching, I found a 5K in my city that did look kind of fun. I registered for it, I paid the fee, and decided to start training specifically for it. I mentioned it in passing to my girlfriend that night, and she asked if she could come too. I was psyched about the idea of running a 5K with her, and I said yes, but warned her that she would probably want to start training because I was going for a sub 27-minute time, which might be tough for a complete beginner. She said she would like to train with me, which again sounded fun, so the next morning I woke up at 5 in the morning for my run as I usually do, but my girlfriend was not up for it and told me that she'd go later. This continued for a week, and then 2 weeks, and finally I managed to get her up once for a run. She was miserable the entire time, and I basically didn't get any exercise. Last Friday, the day before the race, I asked if she was really up for it. She insisted that she was. She then told me that she would just gallop and skip through it, just like she used to when she would do her mile runs when she was in middle school. I asked her to demonstrate what a skip gallop was, and she showed me this bizarre side-stepping gallop as if she had a cast on her legs. I told her it seemed like a really inefficient way to run, but she insisted it always worked for her. Saturday was the day of the race, and right out of the gate she utilized her skip gallop strategy. 2 minutes in, I realized that she was already completely gassed. She started asking me to wait so we could walk together. I apologized, I told her that I loved her, and left her behind to finish the race. I ended up with a time of 26 minutes and 43 seconds, beating my goal entirely. After the race, I tried calling her, but she wouldn't pick up. When I made my way back to the car, I realized that she had left me. I had to take an Uber home, and right when I walked in the door, I was met with her shrieking about how I ditched her. I tried to calm her down and explain that she kind of brought it on herself, but she was not interested whatsoever. Yesterday, she gave me the silent treatment all day. Do I deserve what I'm getting here? What should I do? This is hilarious to me. I'm just gonna say it, and I'm sorry if that's mean. Did your girlfriend really think that she could run a 5K just by skipping through it? I mean, that sounds more exhausting than actually running the race. Like, that is really funny. She thought she could get away with that, first and foremost. But also, why would she be like, no, wait, you should walk with me? Like, no, I'm not gonna walk with you. I've been training for this. I've been training specifically to get under 27 minutes. I worked really hard for this, and I've been waking up at 5 in the morning every single morning just to get ready for this. Like, it is extremely selfish for her to expect her boyfriend to throw everything out the window just so she can have someone to walk with in this race. He has literally been training for this. That is so unbelievably selfish. Not to mention the fact that she left this guy at the race and forced him to get an Uber just to get home. Like, that is just totally unfair. I mean, she did know what she was getting into, right? I mean, there is a reason why your boyfriend was getting up early in the morning to train for this. So honestly, I don't think the original poster is a jerk in this situation. They did not do anything wrong. Their girlfriend is being a weirdo, and truly, this is all on them. Because if they wanted to have a good time at this race, they should have done more to train and get ready for it. And that fault does not fall on the original poster. Instead, it falls squarely on the shoulders of his girlfriend. Am I the jerk for purposefully letting my sister hit a pole after she was looking at her phone all the time while driving? Here's what happened. So my little sister, let's call her Christy, that's not her real name, has recently gotten her license. She obviously thinks she's an incredible driver and can handle a car no matter what. After only 4 months of driving, she has already become one of those girls who put their phone between their thighs to be able to look at messages and access it quickly while driving. It drives us all insane, to be honest, and my family and I have talked to her about it multiple times, but it goes in one ear and out the other. Yesterday, she did it again while driving my car, and this is when we were out getting groceries. She had been distracted for almost the entire drive and even continued to look at her phone when I told her to cut it out. When she was about to roll into a parking spot, she probably got a message and and looked down at her phone. I noticed that she was about to ram into a lantern, and when I was sure that she wouldn't cause damage to other vehicles, I decided to just let her run into it instead of intervening. It was a huge shock to her, and she just sat there completely still for like 15 seconds, processing what had just happened. It wasn't until I spoke up that she finally spoke again. I said to her, "Will you please learn to leave your phone alone now?" The first thing that she said was, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" And she said this in an absolute baffled tone, and I told her straight up that I didn't tell her so she'd learn a lesson. She was absolutely livid and tried to push all the blame onto me for not intervening, but I told her it would still have the same outcome had I not even been there, and that ultimately she, as the driver, is the responsible party for not only her but all passengers in the car. Christy was absolutely gobsmacked that she messed around and found out, even more so when I told her that she would have to account for half the damages caused in an accident that the insurance wouldn't cover, and in total it was shy of just about $200. Overall, I had a blown out light, a bent bumper, and a dent in the hood, plus a few scrapes on my car. She went completely wild, but I told her that she's lucky I'm not making her pay for everything since she was driving the car while being on the phone. A few days after the insurance gave me the sum, I told Christy what she owes me, which she paid immediately. She told me that apparently because of this, she won't be able to go on a trip with her friends, and that I'm a massive jerk. She also added that she would have learned her lesson otherwise too. I personally doubt that she would have, and honestly, distracted drivers are the worst. So honestly, am I the jerk for purposefully letting my sister run into a pole when she was clearly looking at her phone? You are not the jerk, and you taught her a valuable lesson. First off, this is all on her. If she's gonna be the one driving the car, she needs to keep everybody else safe in the car. This is all her fault, literally nobody else. And you know what? It was smart of you to let her run into that pole. It's better to run into that as opposed to some kind of bystander who didn't see the car coming. I know when I'm driving, I put my phone down and I don't even look at it. Like, I literally just put it to the side and I say, okay, this can wait until I get home. It's not an emergency. Let's just drive and focus on the road. So when it comes to Christy, it is literally a choice for her to look at her phone on her lap. So for her to call you the jerk when you didn't say anything with her running into that pole, honestly, that's not your fault. You were letting her learn a lesson pretty much the hard way. So if anything, good for you for being the better older brother, because your little sister was being an idiot, and this is a valuable lesson she won't forget anytime soon. Am I the jerk for pretending like I don't have money so that my family won't bother me? Here's what happened. So my wife and I partially retired with $4 million in savings. I am a systems engineer and my wife is a registered nurse. I still work part-time and I contract out, but less than 20 hours a week, and my wife is fully retired. We are both very frugal people, and we try to save where we can. I've also made it clear to my wife to never tell my family that we have money, and to pretend that we are just absolutely broke. Her family knows we do well, but they never ask for money. My family, though, won't stop asking for money. My mom, my dad, and my brother are terrible with money. My dad and brother both work oil and gas, which results in a few fat years of tons of money coming in, followed up by layoffs. Not saying the layoffs are their fault, but they have never seen anything, so they run up credit cards to pay for everything. My parents have borrowed against their house so many times, they effectively haven't paid anything towards the principal, and they have had their house for 35 years. They should be retired but can't, and my dad recently had to go back to work as a school bus driver because they have so much debt and no money. My brother inherited their spending habits and has his own alcohol struggles. He's currently going through his second divorce. I didn't tell my son not to tell his grandparents we recently retired, and they found out from him recently and have been calling me livid because we pretended to be broke for years, but clearly if we can retire, we have savings. I didn't tell them because I know the results are they would just ask us for money constantly. They have on several occasions when we went on vacation, and they found out via Facebook, and since then we learned not to post about it, with them eventually knocking on our door asking for money. But we lied and told them that we won some money, but we had spent it all on the vacation. Am I obligated to help them? I don't feel so, because both my parents and brother made lots over their career, but my dad is in his 70s and still working. I'm sure they are contacting me to ask for money, but am I the jerk if I continue to pretend like I have none? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I don't think it's dishonest to say, sorry, I don't have any money to give you. Like, you are not obligated to pay off their debt. And you know what? If they found out you have $4 million in savings, then you better believe they're gonna try and get a piece of that pie. They have terrible spending habits. Why would you give them money just so they can then spend that like crazy. I mean, personally, if I was in your shoes and I had that much money in my savings, I would be hesitant to give any kind of money to someone who's just gonna spend it all over the place. I also think personally, just in my opinion, that you don't have to be secretive about how hard both of you have worked. This is your money, and you and your wife get to decide what you spend it on. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would not be afraid of spending money. You can still have a frugal lifestyle, but I just don't think it's a good idea to not spend your money simply to hide the fact that you have a lot of money stored up in your savings. And this really could be as simple as you telling them, hey, we've retired and we're on a fixed income. And that is literally it. How much you have is none of anybody else's business. And if I were you and I was in your situation, I wouldn't tell anybody about how much money I have in my bank account. So hopefully this works out and hopefully your family can stop bothering you, because at the end of the day, it's your money and no one deserves it except for you and your wife. Am I the jerk for leaving my niece's wedding reception early, as well as taking my gift back? Here's what happened. So I'm a 45-year-old male and I have a 22-year-old niece who just got married last weekend. And let me tell you, the family is blowing up with drama right now because of what myself as well as my wife did. I must preface this by saying my family can be pushovers. They really all hate conflict and will definitely let themselves be run over by someone else in order to not cause a fight. But you know what? I am not that way. The wedding was on a Saturday. It was a Catholic ceremony in a church at 3:30 p.m. The reception area was about 15 minutes away from the church. The reception was set to start at 5 o'clock. Maybe this was stupid on the venue people, but they wouldn't open the bar or bring around the appetizers until the bride and groom arrived. Service ended at around 4:30 and everyone was told to go to the reception. The wedding party had a limo to take them, and a separate limo took the parents, grandparents, and siblings. The couple is young and decided against family in the wedding party. It was 4 sorority sisters and fraternity brothers on each side. My wife and I drove. We got to the venue around 4:50 with the first family limo arriving around that time. By 5 o'clock, I would say all 150 guests were there, but there was still no bride or groom. The wedding coordinator was getting really upset as it was now 5:45 and there was still no wedding party. We are all just standing around with no food or drinks. Someone was able to get a hold of the maid of honor around this point, and apparently the bride and groom told the limo driver to stop at the liquor store and then drove around on the highway for an hour so the wedding party could get trashed. At around 6 o'clock, the maid of honor said they should be arriving in the next 20 minutes. My wife and I looked at each other and said we are out. We thought it was horribly disrespectful for them to do that to all of their guests. I told my brother that we were leaving and taking the gift with us. He tried to plead by saying, they're just kids, let them have fun. But I was having none of it. A few days after, I got an apology text from my niece, followed up by her asking for the gift again. I said that I felt very disrespected and I didn't want to give a gift anymore. She then snapped and called me a jerk. So now I really need to know, are we the jerks for leaving this wedding reception after she went around town just to get wasted for over an hour? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Everybody was shepherded over to this reception to be there at 5 o'clock, to then have to sit around there for an hour, all because the wedding party wanted to get trashed before they go to the event, is honestly so disrespectful to everybody who showed up. Like seriously, do they not see that everybody's waiting on them? They can't get any food, they can't get any drinks. They're literally waiting on this one group of people to come into the wedding reception. Like seriously, that was so disrespectful to everybody there. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. You can clearly see that she apologized and was like, okay, I'm sorry. By the way, where's that gift you were gonna give me? Like we can clearly see that she was only sorry to try and get that gift. And instead of apologizing again, she decided to snap and call you a jerk. So honestly, that's all you really need to know about her. She was in it for the gift and the rest of the guests just did not matter to her. So honestly, good for you for taking a stand, because your niece's behavior was absolutely atrocious and there's no way that should have happened. An entitled Karen tries to buy my pet lizards off of me, and when I tell her no, they are not for sale, she then tries to steal them. And I'm still in shock of this entitled Karen's audacity, and I still can't believe that she tried this. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I have 2 bearded dragons. One is expensive and very pretty looking. It's yellow with orange and a very grayish blue. He's also much larger than most dragons, which makes him a fun opportunity for people who want to take a photo of him. I also have a female named Bella, who is a little less pretty, but we all love her the same. Now, when it comes to me, I have a few disorders, like social anxiety and bipolar manic depression, so these lizards are my lifeline. They're now officially service animals, and I can take them anywhere I want legally, and it is safe. safe. The story takes place in a pet-friendly mall. I have a stroller to carry these guys in that doubles as a backpack, and they're very well behaved. They don't jump out, and I can zip them up if need be. Now, people who know bearded dragons know they can be put together in the same cage or in places together with no real supervision. My bearded dragons are more friendly than most. They don't care about other dragons or animals, and there's a divider in the stroller. So I'm walking with my friend around GameStop, and I just had a pleasant interaction with the lady working there. She took some photos and we discussed reptiles because she has a gecko at home. We traveled a few times around the mall, stopped at the food court to grab some food, and after we finished eating and continued walking, I was stopped by a lady who didn't look like a Karen off the bat, who also had a tubby, red-faced little boy who looked very upset. The mom then introduces herself, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Karen. And the first interaction goes like this. The Karen says to us, "Hey, can we see your bearded dragons? My son really likes them and he thinks they're pretty." I say to her, "Of course, let me unzip their carrier so you can take a look at them." Her son kind of squeaks, and he's very excited, which is the exact opposite of how he looked earlier. So I take out Bella because she is the most friendly and has a lot less anxiety. The Karen then says, "Can my son hold him? He's never held one before." As a side note, they do have harnesses and leashes on because when I let them in the grass on the floor, they do like to trot around. The son then kind of retorts that he would rather hold the other one because he's bigger and prettier. I then say, "I'm sorry, I'd rather you not hold him. He's a little bit more sensitive and I don't like him getting scared with new people holding him." The Karen then said, "Oh, it's fine. He can hold him. He's very nice with animals. He almost has a special connection with them, you know." I was holding Bella at this point and started to sense that this is gonna get out of hand. So I went to grab the carrier to put her back, and that's when it finally happened. This entitled Karen looks at me and says, "Look, my son really likes him, so would it be possible for me to buy both of them from you?" And I was honestly blown away by her request. At this point, I'm zipping up the carrier and getting ready to put it on my back. I then say to her, "No, I'm not willing to sell them to you just because your son is really interested. Also, do you not understand how much money and work these guys are?" The entitled Karen then clapped back. She said to me, "If you don't sell me them, I'll call the police and say you stole them." She then lunged for the bag in my hands before I had a chance to put it on, and I just barely managed to turn before she grabbed it. Now at this point, my friend was gone, going to get security about halfway through this, and it's right about at this moment that one of the security guards comes up. The entitled Karen then starts screaming, "She stole them! She stole my pets! Those are mine! She saw my carrier and she stole all of it!" The guard just sighs and asks the lady to please leave or she will have the police called on her again. She's arguing with the guard about how it's real this time, and the guard's just staring at her with utter disbelief. Also, her son at this point was crying about how he didn't get a hold of my lizards and how he won't get to have one for a pet. Thankfully, the guard at this point had just told us to go do our thing because he had this handled, and that it's not too uncommon that this has happened with this person before, while also explaining that if this person does come back for us and doesn't leave, that we should let them know as soon as possible. So we did just that and we left. And as we were leaving, she was in handcuffs in a police cruiser with a lady with a service dog standing not too far behind talking to another police officer. That is a crazy situation. Can you imagine bringing your pet to a mall only to then have someone literally try to steal it from you? Like seriously, I think I would lose my mind if someone tried that on me. There's no way that's gonna happen in the slightest. And this is especially bad for the original poster. Now granted, I've never heard of a lizard being a service animal, but hey, if it fits the bill and it is something that you really do need, then by all means have the service animal with you. And worst of all, it sounds like this is not the first time that this lady's done this. I mean, that is an entirely different level of crazy, to be completely honest. Because what if the situation was reversed? What if the security guard really did believe this crazy Karen and the original poster lost their pets right then and there? But thankfully, the security guard knew what was happening here, and clearly they've dealt with this crazy lady many times before. So thankfully, justice was served on this entitled crazy Karen, because trying to take someone else's pet, especially a service animal, is unbelievably disgusting, and she absolutely deserved to go to jail. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. Am I the jerk for not wanting to split my jackpot winnings with my husband's friend? Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old female and I played the lottery for the first time last year when everyone else was talking about the Powerball jackpot. Since then, I've been playing casually, only spending a few dollars a week. I occasionally won a few bucks and never really expected to win anything big, but it was nice to dream dream as I had a ton of debt and have been struggling a lot. Fast forward a few months ago, and I checked the winning numbers one night against my ticket, and it matched with my numbers perfectly. Initially, I didn't believe it, and I thought there had to be a mistake, so I told my husband, and we checked it like a dozen times, and I was right. We actually won. This is life-changing, multi-generational money. We instantly agreed to keep the news to ourselves and wait a few months before we did anything. The past few months have been an incredible high, filled with disbelief, and though it has been difficult, we have managed not to make any large purchases or change our lifestyle in the slightest. We fantasize about what to do with our money, but the time to claim is drawing near, so we have begun having more practical discussions about how to claim it and what to do with it. While discussing it, my husband brought up the idea that he thinks it'll be a good idea to split the money with his best friend and business partner by the name of Tommy. Tommy is not his real name. My husband and Tommy have been best friends since they were in middle school, and they have done everything together ever since then. Together, they've started businesses, they've worked together, they've invested money, have moved to the same town, and have often dreamed about our families making it big together. Since we have taken risks together and they are so close, my husband feels it's fair to give him 1/3 of the cash prize. And his reasoning is that for starters, we are not going on this new journey in life alone. And secondly, it's going to be suspicious to make all this money suddenly, and it will just be more easy to explain if Tommy suddenly makes money as well, since we do everything together. I, however, feel it's risky to share that we have come into this money because Tommy's family tends to be more flashy and they like to show off, and I don't fully trust that they will keep it quiet or be modest enough to not raise suspicion. This is very important because I've seen community members attack people with far less money just because they feel entitled to it. This could jeopardize our safety, so I want to avoid it if at all possible. Also, I'm not really comfortable with his plan to add Tommy and his wife as members of our LLC just to claim the prize. And this is because I think it could have them feeling more entitled to a bigger chunk or just trying to take all the money in general. My husband thinks I'm being selfish and he won't enjoy our newfound wealth if his friend isn't living the same lifestyle, but I think we could find a way to later give them some money after figuring out a way to explain how we came into money without telling them that we won the lottery. And I honestly have no idea how to do that yet. So honestly, am I the jerk for not wanting to tell them that we won the lottery and for not wanting to split the money with anyone except for me and my husband? Am I being selfish here? What should I do? First and foremost, in my personal opinion, winning the lottery has got to be both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because suddenly you have money that will last you a lifetime. You will never have to worry about rent, food, fixing your car, medical expenses, anything like that. If you play your cards right and you're smart with that money, you will have exactly what you need for the rest of your life. Now, also in my personal opinion, when it comes to telling other people about this money, I really don't think it's a good idea to bring anyone else into this that could possibly stick their hands in your prize. Like, I think your husband's intentions are very noble, but I really think it's misguided. This money is literally going to change your life. If you think you can still live in the same house you've lived in before, you've got another thing coming. Like, this is why people move states when they win the lottery. Everybody around them, and I mean everybody, is about to find out that you are a millionaire and you've got buckets of money, and you better believe that everybody and their mother is going to want a piece of that. So personally, I am definitely with the original poster here. I don't think it's a good idea to bring your friend in on this. I also think if you haven't done it already, it's time to get an attorney and a financial advisor, because unless you want this money to basically ruin your life, you're going to need both of those to really make sure you do this all correctly, because otherwise it's just going to be a nightmare, and I can only see this getting worse well before it gets any better. Am I the jerk for taking back my sister's invite after she refused to go since I didn't invite my mom to my wedding? Here's what happened. So when I was 16, my parents split due to my mom having an affair with a friend of my dad's. I was at the age where I could decide who to live with as well, and I chose my dad. My sisters chose to shuffle back and forth. Me and my sisters have never really been close afterwards. I have not spoken to my mom since I graduated back in 2014, and my sisters have been complaining about it ever since. My sisters don't like my stepmom while I love her, so they don't come to my dad's much, which we are both honestly fine with. I don't speak to them unless necessary around the holidays. I did not attend my older sister's wedding due to the tension, so I've never even met her husband. I'm currently engaged, and our wedding is in December. I plan to invite both my sisters for the sake of my fiance, who wanted them there. My younger sister isn't coming because I did not invite my mom, and instead have my stepmom involved, and I'm honestly happy with that. My older sister pretends to be this big family family person on social media, so I think for appearances she was going to come. After I sent the invite, she called and said it wasn't right to phase our mom out, considering her side of the family will be there. I said I didn't ask for her advice on the guest list. She said in solidarity with our other sister, as well as our mother, she is not going to attend. So I said, okay, great. And this was about a month ago. Last week, I got a call from a random number who ended up being my brother-in-law, saying he spoke with my sister and she wanted to come to the wedding. I said that isn't what she originally said. He said she was just trying to force something, and that was wrong and she wanted to attend. I said it was way too late as the offer had been taken away. He said that family was important and that it would be a good step. And then I asked who in the world he even was, as I've never even met the guy. He said my sister is too proud to call, so he did it for her. I said it was too bad her ego was that big that she would allow her husband to do her dirty work. So still there was no invite. I pretty much told the guy that family wasn't that important, given I don't even know who he is, and that his wife tried to threaten me. So I was honestly done with it. He said a few other things about family, and I just laughed at him, telling him I don't even know him. They obviously want a free dinner, and he should grow a pair and get his back from my sister. My fiance heard most of the conversation and said I was being a jerk to him, even if my sister was being toxic. I told them that the jerk thing is to call on your wife's behalf about an issue that literally doesn't concern you. And now I was just throwing their toxicity right back in their face. So I need to know, am I the jerk for taking back my sister's invite to my wedding? I don't think you're the jerk. It really does sound like your sister's playing games. She both wants to take the high ground while also securing some spot in your wedding. But honestly, she can't have it both ways. She needs to make a choice. Either be there and stand in solidarity with her mom, or come to the wedding and be somewhat of a sister that she has clearly never been in your upbringing. And it is really showing that she had her husband come in and literally do her dirty work for her. I think you're 100% right in that regard. If she really wanted to come along, she should have apologized, said, hey, I'm really sorry, and then asked politely if she can come to the wedding. But instead, she had some third-party husband that you've never even met try and accomplish this for her. All the while, he's spouting off all this stuff about family. And I totally agree with the original poster. The irony of this situation is that you've never even met this guy. Like, literally, he is a stranger trying to lecture you about family. Like, is he kidding? So no, I don't blame you for taking back this invitation. She was being incredibly toxic, and you know what? This is the result of her actions. Am I the jerk for selling my late grandmother's house against my brother's wishes, despite his childhood dream of always wanting to live there? Here's what happened. Last year, my grandmother passed away, leaving behind a reasonably large house in a small coastal town. This house is something you would see on a postcard, a lovely Victorian-era home with a view of the sea. It has been in our family for generations, and it holds an immense amount of sentimental value for all of us, particularly my younger brother. Since we were children, my younger brother has always been enchanted by that house. He would spend hours exploring every nook and cranny, daydreaming about the life he'd lead there. As we grew older, his dream never wavered. He wanted to live in that house. But when our grandmother's will was read, it turned out she had left the house to me. I was living in the city, happily settled with my own family and career. My brother, on the other hand, was still living paycheck to paycheck, constantly in between jobs, and often borrowing money from our parents or me. Seeing the state of the house after our grandmother's passing, it was clear it needed serious renovation. There were issues with the plumbing, the roof needed repairs, and the old wiring was a safety hazard. All these renovations were necessary to make the house habitable, and they would cost a significant amount of money that my brother didn't have and I wasn't in a position to provide, without jeopardizing my own family's financial stability. Taking all of this into account, I decided selling the house was the best option. The housing market was favorable, and we stood to make a considerable profit from the sale. My plan was to split the money equally. I wasn't in dire need of all the money as we lived somewhat comfortably, but my brother would have a substantial amount to clear his debts and could rent or even buy a small place where he could start fresh. My brother proposed that I sell the house to him at a considerably lower price than the market value. I declined this offer as the amount he was offering was significantly less, and it was almost all of his savings, leaving very little left in terms of living cost and expenses. I told him that it wasn't a good idea for him, nor was it beneficial to me and my family, whereas selling it for a much higher value on the open market and splitting the money with him meant we both walked away with much better financial situations. My brother was heartbroken and accused me of betraying him and selling off his dreams. I tried to explain my perspective, that it was for his own good, but he saw it as me being pragmatic at the cost of his feelings. He stopped talking to me, and the rest of our family took his side, saying saying that I was selfish. This whole situation has left me riddled with guilt. I never wanted to upset my brother, but I genuinely believed, and I still believe, that selling the house was in our best interest, especially his. And also, Ben had offered me about 30% of the market value, so me selling it to him would not have been the same as just splitting it 50-50. And while my brother did inherit other belongings, the value was much less than the house. My grandma knew he wasn't well off when it came to financial decisions, and did not leave it to me with the intent of it being kept around for generations. So am I the jerk for selling my grandmother's house, even though my brother desperately wanted it? Honestly, this is a really tough decision that I'm glad you made. For several reasons, it would have been an awful idea to sell this to your brother. He is not financially stable, and he would not have been able to pay for all the repairs that would have been necessary just to make that place safe to live in. I think by selling this house off, you probably protected your brother from a lot of problems in his life, because he's living paycheck to paycheck. And sure, the house is like a dream, but that dream could have turned into a nightmare if the electrical system, I don't know, caught on fire one day. Or maybe the roof would have caved in because it hasn't been up to code, or something like that. There are a lot of things that could have gone wrong in that house had your brother finally gotten a chance to live in it. And it sounds like this is a really old house, and you better believe if any of those things happened to the house, he would be knocking on your door to try and figure it out financially. And that, in my opinion, just sounds obnoxious, and it's not something I would ever want to put up with. So yes, it really was a hard decision, but honestly, in my opinion, I really think this was for the best. Am I the jerk for making my neighbor's kids cry after humiliating them in front of the entire neighborhood? Here's what happened. So I'm an 18-year-old female, and I live with my two older siblings. Recently, new people moved in right next to us, and they have kids. They are a bit loud, which was a bit annoying, but they were kids, and kids do that. I didn't really have a problem with them until they started ding-dong ditching us. I don't even know if it could be considered ding-dong ditching, because they literally kick the door like they're trying to impersonate the FBI. They hang out in front of our house and do it every 10 to 20 minutes. Keep in mind, they kick really hard. My sister was going to call the police in a fit of rage, but I told her no, because talking to their parents or calling the police might just make it worse. I don't know the kid's situation at home, and confronting the parents might make it bad for them, but they keep doing it, more often and a lot harder. There are literally dents and scuffs on the door, and I'm seriously getting annoyed along with my siblings. They clearly don't see the security camera right in front of the door, so I know their intelligence is lacking, so I'm not gonna yell at them. Instead, I wrote a sign in front of the door, kindly asking them to stop, because my siblings work from home, and it is extremely distracting, but it keeps happening. They rip up the sign and then they spit on it, so I just can't take it anymore. I slip on some socks and slippers and I go next door to talk to the parents. The mom said it's not that big of a deal. My door wasn't seriously damaged, and that they were just kids and trying to have fun. And if it's that distracting, I should just put on some headphones. But my last straw is when these kids mess with my packages outside the door. They would shake them and throw the box against the stairs. So I snapped and decided to take screenshots of all the security footage of them being a menace. I make a poster with their face on it, the damage that they've done to them, and photo evidence of them being menaces. I type out, "Neighbors, be on the lookout. Local doorstop gremlins may terrorize your front door," which I found funny at the time. I print it out and tape it all over the neighborhood. My other neighbor finds it hilarious because those kids have been doing the same to her, and she confronted the parents too, and the parents did nothing. But today, I got a giant knock on the door, and it wasn't the little snot-nosed kids. This time, it was the mom. She called me all kinds of names for humiliating her kids. She said that her kids were crying and they were traumatized to go outside. She yells at me and drops pieces of the ripped up poster on my doormat and then walks away. So am I the jerk for humiliating those kids for all that they've done to our door? First and foremost, the mother in this story is an awful mother. Is she seriously justifying her stupid kid's behavior? Like, she's seriously gonna look in these people's eyes and say, "Oh, if you don't like the noise of my kids kicking your door in, just put headphones on." Like, I'm sorry, that's not gonna fly. Your kids are busting in my door. The original poster even goes on to say that they're really surprised that a 10-year-old could even do that. I mean, there are literal dents and scuffs on the door. There's no way that anyone can really justify that and still keep a straight face. And personally, if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have called the police. That is damaging someone else's property. That is also blatant harassment towards you and your family, and there's no way you should have to put up with that. But overall, I really do like your solution. You humiliated those little punks right then and there, and you basically taught them a lesson that if they want to try and mess around, then they are definitely going to find out. An entitled executive says some vulgar comments to the undercover CEO checking him in for his job interview, and before he even has a chance to try and backpedal the things that he said, this CEO confirms and guarantees that this guy is not getting the job. And I've never been happier to witness this kind of takedown. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I work in a reception area as an assistant to one of the vice presidents at a fairly large retail company. The reception suite is also the lobby area for 2 other VPs and the first of several places you go to get to the CEO. They were interviewing potential new executives for a high-ranking position yesterday, and I overhear pretty much all of their conversations. So I already knew ahead of time that internally they decided to hire one particular applicant and that this last interview was just a formality. The CEO does a lot of undercover boss work. She's known for putting on workers' clothes and going into our factories or going to the call center and handling customer service complaints herself. Her face isn't on the website, she doesn't appear in promotional materials, plus she has a gender-neutral name, so she's really good at keeping it low-key. The new applicant came and tried to walk past the desk, even though it's set up in such a way where it's pretty obvious you need to check in first. I said to them, "Hi, excuse me, do you have an appointment?" And he just kind of grunted. I asked him his name, as well as who he was here to see, just so I could try and check him in. But he just said, "I'm expecting." But I kindly insisted to get his name and said something to the effect of, they'd like to get a heads up even before scheduled appointments to make sure all their ducks in a row in the interest of your valuable time. He then just rolls his eyes and gave me his name, and I realized he was the new executive they were likely hiring. He had worked just across the hall when hired, so I wasn't thrilled about that, but trying to keep a calm demeanor because we would have to get along. He would basically be my boss soon. Within a few seconds of sitting down, he said to me, "Well, are they coming? Or did you even tell them that I'm here?" I had paged the office phone. The person they were seeing was in a meeting that was running late, so I asked if he wanted some coffee or some water. He asked for a very elaborate coffee drink, but all we have are these coffee pods. But we're supposed to do whatever we can to avoid telling corporate visitors the word no, so I had someone go out to get his coffee from Starbucks. And you know what? I didn't even get a thank you when she returned with it for him. The guy is getting increasingly more hostile, asking when his meeting will start, accusing me of ruining the schedule, unplugging our lamp without asking so he couldn't charge his iPad, stuff like that. And that's when our CEO comes out. She says to me, "I can start my shift early. You go ahead and hop off." It isn't the first time she's come in pretending to be a receptionist. I deal with a lot of communications from people trying to get to the vice presidents, and she likes seeing how higher-ups within the company treat us lowly assistants. And honestly, she could not have come along at a better time. This guy snaps his fingers at her and shakes his empty coffee cup to signal that he wants a refill. He even has his feet on our coffee table. The CEO is seeing all of it, but I realize she doesn't know who the guy is or why he's here, so I think he'll probably end up hired anyways. As I start packing up, the guy begins to complain to her about his meeting running late and basically says, "I hope you're better at your job than she is." The CEO is immediately turned off by that behavior. She apologizes for the wait and asked him if there's anything that she can do to make this experience more pleasant. He says with a straight face, "Well, if you're really committed to excellent service, you could give me a quick foot rub." Although he didn't say foot rub, if you know what I mean. He then starts cackling in the grossest, most self-satisfied way, and it's right about then that she gets up and introduces herself, and the guy goes pale as a ghost. He starts trying to say, "You know what, that came out wrong," but she tells him nothing he says now can undo what he's already said, and that he'll have to wait for his meeting outside because the employees won't be subjected to that kind of treatment. Dumbstruck, he packs up and heads out. He's just down the corridor when the guy he's meeting with surfaces, and that's when I run to grab him. The CEO can't believe such a vulgar guy is meeting with someone so important and then asks who he is. She recognizes the guy as the one who's been selected as a hire via the emails that she's received, and she goes, "No, oh no, that guy is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Besides, no one stupid enough to mistreat our secretary at a job interview is qualified for this work." The one he was meeting with didn't see any of the preceding events, so they were beyond confused. The scumbag from earlier knew that he sunk this interview, so he just sheepishly leaves. He doesn't even say anything. And honestly, this was a beautiful display, and one of the many reasons why I love our CEO. What that guy actually said is honestly insane, because trust me, he wasn't asking for a foot rub. This guy was being incredibly gross, and I cannot stand people like that. In my opinion, if you can't treat people right who work in customer service or who work at a front desk of some kind, then you are indeed a complete jerk, and there's no reason for you to get any kind of job or advantage in life. Like seriously, all this guy had to do was just sit there and not say anything. I mean, he could have just sat there on his phone and read the news, or checked his emails or something like that. But instead, this guy seriously was barking around orders, as well as ordering coffee and being a complete weirdo to the CEO. Like, that guy was a complete creep, and it's so good that the CEO saw that. I know I've been in positions where people act one way in the front desk, but then a completely different way once they get back to the person they're trying to meet with. It's almost like they turn off that side of their brain that's gonna treat you like garbage, and suddenly they're the nicest people on planet Earth. So good for the original poster and the CEO for seeing this in person, as well as for the fact that this guy ran away with his tail between his legs, because the way he was acting was completely atrocious, and he had no right to treat anybody that way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. My friend asked me to keep an eye on her house while she went out of the country, only to then literally run into her in the city that we live in. And when I tried to text her or message her on any other kind of social media, I find out that she's completely blocked me. And at this point, I'm so confused and I seriously don't know what to do. So I want to start off by saying my head is completely spinning, as I am in the weirdest interpersonal situation I have ever encountered. A few years back, my friend, who we will call Carla, that's not her real name, told me that she was going on a month-long vacation to her home country and needed someone to tend to her apartment and water her plants. She said I was welcome to use the apartment as I pleased and stay there if I wanted to. I jumped at the opportunity, as she lives in a neighborhood of the city that I really like, and we're not best friends, but we are very close. After Carla left about 3 weeks ago, I sent her a couple of text messages to see how she was doing, as well as sending some silly proof of life photos of her plants. I didn't get any response. I was left undelivered. I thought to myself, okay, she is probably busy hanging out with friends and family back home. Then this morning, I'm walking down the street in the city, and who do I run into but Carla herself? And it's not like I saw her from across the street. We literally physically crossed paths as she was leaving a bagel shop with some guy. I was completely shocked, but just said, "Oh, hi, you're back already? I thought you were due back at the beginning of August." And she just very quickly blurted out, "Oh yeah, I was gonna text you. I'm back already. Let's catch up later." She side hugged me and then hurried off. Around an hour later, I sit down in the park to have lunch and I pull out my phone. I decided to just text her and say, I hope everything's okay. And that's when I'm shocked to find out that she has blocked me on absolutely everything. In a panic, I tried to call her, but it literally went straight to voicemail. Mind you, I still have keys to Carla's apartment. I have no idea what to do, and I am in complete shock. My mind goes to the weirdest places. Is she in danger with this person that she's with? It seems unlikely, but who knows? I do not plan to return to the apartment, and I am going to find a way to leave the keys at the front desk. In the meantime, can anyone help me understand what in the world is going on? What should I do? Your friend Carla is clearly living some kind of double life. Chances are she probably didn't even leave the country. She probably had some like stay-at-home vacation and has been spending time with some other guy that she doesn't want anyone else to know about. Like, she clearly was just looking for like a free house sitter so that she can run around and do some nefarious stuff behind her back. That's my running theory, at least. I mean, seriously, if she's back in town and you have keys to her apartment and you've been watching her apartment for what, almost a month at this point? Why would she then block you instead of saying, hey, I'm back, let me have my keys back? Or at least having some kind of like, I don't know, conversation about what happened? Instead, she's just being weird and sketchy and very dismissive. Like, she's just blocking you and ghosting you on everything. I mean, she's trusting you with her apartment and her plants and all of her belongings. Why on earth would she want to block someone who has that kind of access? Clearly, in my opinion, you saw something that she did not want anybody to see. And if you think about it, you saw her with another man. And that might be exactly what's going on. She probably doesn't want it to get out that she's with another man out of fear that she might be exposed in some kind of way. I don't know, that's just my theory. If you have a different theory, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what you think about this. So honestly, it sounds like Carla's being super sketchy. And in my opinion, I would maybe just leave her keys as well as a note and explain to her that it was really rude for her to completely block you on everything when you've been trusted to try and help her out with her apartment. Because honestly, you were just trying to be nice and you were doing a favor for somebody that's not even that good of a friend. And based on the way she blocked you everywhere, I would be hard pressed to say she's even a friend in the first place. Am I the jerk for making my daughter cry after guilt tripping her because she couldn't help me when I needed it? Here's what happened. 2 days ago, I had a surgery to remove a skin cancer. The instructions were to keep the bandage on for 24 hours and to not lift anything for 2 weeks all the way up to a month. And if I do lift something, I risk busting my stitches. I asked my kids to help around the house, and they both said said that they were too busy. One of them was going out of town, and the other said she had a project to do. I'm happy the one is getting to have some fun, and the other one I'm proud she's improving her life. But seriously, this sucks. I can't afford hiring someone to help me out, so I asked a man on our second date to go grocery shopping, just so I could feed the cat and get some milk, and thank God he was nice and didn't mind my messy house. I mean, I didn't realize I would be incapacitated like this, or I would have planned things a little bit better. The next day when I changed my bandage, the wound was bigger than I expected, and the ones that I had bought were way too small. I tried to use one, but it laid on top of my stitches. The pain was terrible, but I didn't have anything else, and it's on my shoulder blade, so it's incredibly difficult to get to. I needed help. I contacted my friends, but they were all too busy, so I reached out to my daughter, who said she was studying a new skill, and I explained to her that I was desperate for help. I couldn't see my back, and I didn't sleep much anyways, because every time I rolled over, I woke up from the pain. She said she could do it, but not until 10 or 11 o'clock that night, and she had another thing in an hour. So I called her. I thought I could pick her up quickly, run to the store, and get her back home for her thing that she had to do. If she was late, I figured people would forgive her because she was helping her mom, who literally could not do this for herself. She started crying because I was giving her a guilt trip and she just needed to breathe. Exacerbated, I eventually hung up. I ended up going to the pharmacy, and the nice pharmacist helped me out and put it on my back. And this was in the store where anyone could see it. It was weird asking a stranger and being exposed in public, but she was kind and said I could come back again to put a band-aid on the next day. Now, I did not know it would be so easy. I did feel terrible that my daughter cried, and I sent a text message apologizing to her, which she hasn't responded to yet. But I'm hurt. I don't often ask for help. I always bend over backwards, spend time and money, and do whatever I can for my kids. But this hurts a lot because I really wanted her to help me out versus a stranger I don't even know. I honestly don't know what to think. I've never wanted to emotionally manipulate my children. I don't even point out my hardships or how I've sacrificed for them, but I legitimately needed help. I was alone, sleep deprived, and in pain. Also, I was really hungry, but that's another story. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Is there something that I'm not seeing? Honestly, I don't know what to think of this, and I would like to take responsibility on my part and make amends if needed. What should I do? Honestly, I can see both sides of this. For starters, you definitely were in pain. You had a lot of things going on, and a lot of things were happening that you were not ready for. You didn't expect to not be able to lift anything after this surgery. Maybe you just weren't told that, and this completely skipped past your radar. So that in and of itself is completely understandable. But to really lean into that, it really seems like your poor planning suddenly becomes everybody else's emergency. And that's not fair for anybody, especially your daughter. Like, her excuse to not help you right away at the drop of a hat is completely reasonable. She is an adult after all. She doesn't have to wait on you hand and foot, and she didn't sign up to do that in the slightest. So I think it really was unfair to try and make your daughter cry in that way, despite the fact that you really needed help right then and there. I mean, you really should have set this up a lot sooner. So in my opinion, you're kind of the jerk in this situation. Your poor planning has put everybody in a weird spot. And honestly, this should have been worked out at least a week or two before the surgery was gonna happen. Am I the jerk for charging my pregnant cousin extra money for a new wedding dress after she told me about her pregnancy at the last possible minute? Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I own a bridal shop. My cousin, by the name of Sarah, that's not her real name, is getting married in 2 months, and I designed and tailored her wedding dress as a gift. She also paid me for the materials. It will take another week to finish the dress, and I constantly update her on the status of her dress and asked her if she is happy at every stage and if she has any more ideas. She would make the odd comment, but never anything major. The dress in total took me about 4 months to make. Last weekend, my cousin and her fiance hosted a family dinner, and at the end, she announced that she was pregnant. At the dinner, I congratulated her and her fiance. She came to my store with my aunt that week for her final fitting. I again mentioned the pregnancy and asked how far along she was. And that's when she told me she was 12 weeks along and told me how hard it was to keep the pregnancy a secret. I told her the dress wouldn't fit her at the 20-week mark during the wedding, and she said she knew and asked me to retailer the dress to fit her new proportions as she would be showing heavily at the wedding. I told her that I can't do that due to the intricate beading that I will have to carefully remove and reattach. I told her she might as well get a new dress, as it would be easier for me to start from scratch, and essentially I was just making her a second wedding dress. She agreed, and then I gave her the invoice for a new dress. I gave her a breakdown, and I charged her for materials, tailoring, labor, and overtime, all of which already had a discount. I will have to work outside my hours to make her the new dress on time, as I have a busy schedule with existing clients that pay full price. I told her that if she had told me about her pregnancy from the second she found out, I might have been able to adjust the dress then, but now it's complete and I can't do that. She then said that her fiance wanted to keep it private, which I totally understand, but I would not have told anyone, and I only needed to know for the dress purposes itself. She then called me a jerk for not understanding where she's coming from and said she will only pay for materials, but I refused to back down, and I told her that this close to the wedding, she will struggle to finalize a new dress that she likes and get it tailored in time as she will be pregnant. I also refused to give her the dress sketch as it was my design and I didn't want her to replicate my work somewhere else. So she left angry, with her mom who called me later to say that her daughter is upset about not having a dress this close to the wedding and that I'm being cruel because this dress is not good for the baby. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are absolutely not the jerk here in my opinion. Your cousin decided to keep this a secret, and as a result, she basically made all of your hard work completely useless. She set you behind 4 months of work, and now you've got to work off the clock just to try and make this thing happen for her. If she had literally just told you right when she got pregnant that, yeah, I'm pregnant and we need to change the dimensions of my wedding dress, you could have had more time to readjust things and not have to literally start from scratch. In my opinion, you are under no obligation to foot the bill for her stupidity. I mean, it sucks that it's going to cost her money, but you know what? Actions have consequences. And the fact that she didn't tell you when she got pregnant is completely on her, not you. So good for you for standing up for yourself and not allowing her to push you around and try and make you do something you're not comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, she's the one that messed up. And if she really wants this wedding dress on time, she is absolutely going to have to pay. Am I the jerk for friend zoning a girl after finding out that she has a kid? Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old male and I've been trying to get back into the dating game after a recent divorce. My ex and I do not have any kids, and I've always been adamant that I never want children. And I've been saying this literally since I was a kid myself. Well, as you can guess, dating at 30 when you don't want kids isn't exactly easy, but I'm still drawing a line there personally. Well, on to the story. I have been casually seeing this girl for a few weeks now. We have never been intimate in person beyond kissing, but we have some very steamy text conversations, if you know what I mean. The other day, she and I decided to have a few drinks and a movie night at my place, but the real agenda was for us to finally have some time together, and she would then stay the night. The night is going well and everything is great, but out of nowhere, she just casually mentions that her kid's father was an absolute pain in the butt lately, and she is so glad she doesn't have to deal with him as a partner anymore. Naturally, I was a bit caught off guard. I asked her to clarify that she does indeed have a kid. She stated that she did, but didn't think it was relevant to us as we hadn't been seeing each other for very long. After she said this, I didn't quite know what to do. Of course, I could have continued with a plan for more time together, but that just felt dirty now. Not because she's a mother, but because I feel like I now have no interest in pursuing her seriously anymore. I shouldn't give her false hope by spending quality time with her, if you know what I mean. I didn't quite know how to handle the situation, so when the time came to go to bed, I just kind of pretended to be too tired to do anything, and I ended up just going to sleep. She seemed visibly disappointed, but I didn't know what else to do. Fast forward a couple of days, and we haven't spoken much since, aside from casual friendly chat over text messaging. Eventually, she sends me a voice message saying that she thinks I'm pretty awful for friend zoning her simply because she's a mother, that she has value beyond her children, and she deserves a real man who can love her and her children. The friend that introduced us to each other is fully on her side and being the same way towards me, despite knowing from our time as friends that I have never wanted kids. I guess I could have been upfront immediately that I think this is not going anywhere and ended the night the moment I found out, but I just felt so awkward about it. Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. She was not being upfront with you about how many kids she had, or with the fact in general that she had kids. Like, that's probably something you want to know in the early dates when going out with someone. That's a really important factor that you need to bring into the relationship. But this lady didn't do that. Instead, she waited until the two of you were basically making out to then drop the news that, hey, she has a former partner and she also has a kid. Now, having kids and dating is not a bad thing. Like, there's plenty of people who do that all the time all over the world. But withholding that information right when you're about to spend some time together and then dropping it on them all of a sudden is really unfair. And that's something she should have disclosed early on in the relationship. So no, you're not the jerk here. I think she wasn't being totally honest with you, and that fact alone is a massive red flag in my opinion. And I truly think that you dodged a train when it comes to this lady. My entitled parents have made awful financial decisions their entire lives, and they are now demanding that I make a payment to them every single month just to help pay off the debt that they've placed upon themselves. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So for a bit of backstory, I'm one of 5 kids, and growing up we always had food on the table, and my parents would take us on trips, we would go camping, go to theme parks, road trips, lots of stuff. I came to find out later in life that most of it, if not all of it, was paid with credit cards. My father's daily driver is a 2006 bright yellow Corvette, which he got brand new. My mom, who just retired from teaching this year, drives a Mercedes-Benz SUV. When I was 19 years old and went to Chase Bank to get my first credit card and start building my own credit, the background check found a Capital One credit card with an outstanding debt of over $25,000. This had been mistakenly tied to me because I share my father's name. I went to college without a scholarship, but was accepted into an aviation program, of which my parents offered to pay for. I did not fully realize at the time that this was all being paid for with a loan. Long story short, that loan exceeded $50,000, and I did not succeed in acquiring my certification to fly commercially. During the time that I was in college, my parents moved out of the house that they owned so that they could purchase land on a golf course, and this was a property costing over $250,000. While attempting to save money so they could build their house on the golf course, they rented property on this golf course. Between paying this rent, in addition to the monthly dues required by the Homeowners Association and Country Club, they have spent in excess of $2,500 every month since 2013. That is literally $300,000. All of this after buying the most expensive cars they could, going on cruises around the Caribbean, buying extravagant clothing, and eating at fine dining restaurants. Now, to fast forward, I got my degree in education. I worked as a teacher for 5 years before leaving the profession due to safety concerns. Now, my wife works as a travel nurse, and we do quite well taking care of ourselves with me staying home to look after our 2 babies. We have a 2-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl. My mother and father are pressuring me immensely to make payments to them so I can make whole their financial investment in me. This is an extra $400 a month that I simply cannot afford. I honestly feel like I'm being extorted by my mother and father, with their relationship being collateral. They feel deserving of being in my life as well as my children's lives. But let me be clear, the needs of food, water, and shelter aside, my childhood was not a happy one. I was really treated awful, and I'll just leave it at that. I know that if I refuse to pay them, I will be excommunicated from this family. I will be made the black sheep of the family. I will be spoken of only poorly, and furthermore made to feel guilty for taking their grandchildren away from them. This whole situation has me disgusted. It's like the sum total of their lives completely revolves around money. It is literally always about money with them. Part of me wants to keep them out of my children's lives, and part of me wants to say forget them and let them continue to deal with their own terrible choices. And another part of me wants to be a part of this family, while simultaneously wanting to completely ghost people in my life who would turn our relationship into slave labor. The idea of getting a remote night job solely so I could pay them back feels like I'm being reduced to slave labor. My parents could have done anything, and numerous investments could have been made, but instead, my 70-year-old father, who makes 6 figures working for NASA, will likely have to continue working as long as he possibly can. On one hand, I do feel bad for him and want to fulfill this financial obligation that has been thrust upon me, but on the other hand, I am simply too burnt out and would rather have nothing to do with them. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, this is such a tricky situation because I really can't see where the original poster's coming from. On one side of this is literally your family. These are your parents. You obviously care about them and you want to help them in any way that you can. I think innately anybody would want their parents to be involved in their children's lives, but that doesn't ignore the fact that your parents were awful to you growing up. They literally willingly brought on so much debt into their lives that now you're the one being forced to pick up the bill. And in my opinion, that is seriously not okay. They place these financial burdens upon their own backs, not the other way around. They have been reckless with their money pretty much from the get-go, and now that they're in a spot where they're old and they have no energy left in their life, they now want to take money from you as a result of their bad choices. And honestly, that's not fair for you in the slightest. I know if I was in that situation, I would just start learning how to say no. I would tell them, no, I cannot help you. No, I cannot afford that. And if they really want to try and be like, okay, fine, you're out of the family, then that is unfortunately their decision and not yours. Because at the end of the day, you are more than a financial investment. You are literally their child. And right about now, they're only treating you as some kind of ATM to try and solve their financial problems. And if I was in your shoes, I would not take that for another second. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. Am I the jerk for telling my poor friend that he's actually the privileged one now, after he now makes about $300,000 a year at his job? Here's what happened. So one of my very close friends and I met during our first post-college job at a prestigious finance firm, and we immediately bonded over the long work hours, the awful middle management, and the general soul-sucking nature of making PowerPoint slides and Excel spreadsheets all day. We'll call this friend John. That is not his real name. For the next few years, a lot of our friendship revolved around us talking about work and how much we absolutely hated it. A few years ago, I decided that I just couldn't take the corporate grind anymore, and I quit my job to move into the nonprofit world. While I now certainly make less than I would have at my old job, I'm exponentially happier, I'm a lot healthier, and I absolutely love the work that I do. I also still make a very good salary, about $80,000 a year, which I feel is more than enough money for me and my needs. John has been ambitiously climbing the corporate ladder and recently became vice president at his firm. He makes well over $300,000 a year. John grew up in a very poor family, and his relatives are still financially unstable and often ask him for money. I, on the other hand, grew up in a comfortable upper middle class suburb with parents who have always been financially stable. They're not millionaires, but if anything ever happened to me, they could and would help me out until I could get back on my feet. John does not have that privilege. I recently got offered my dream job, where I would be making slightly less money than I am now, and despite the money, I am genuinely giddy about this job prospect and was pumped to tell my friends. However, when I told John, his response was to say, "I'm glad you have the financial privilege to take a pay cut." And that was really surprising. I was hoping that he would congratulate me or at least be excited about me wanting this job or anything along those lines. I will admit that I snapped back at him and told him that he makes triple the amount of money I do, and that at some point he needs to realize that he's got privileges of his own instead of pointing out mine. The conversation got a bit heated, and we agreed to hang up and cool off before talking it over. Now, I'm wondering if I should apologize to John for what I said, or if I should just stand my ground. I'm feeling angry and a bit defensive, which I realize is the exact reaction that a spoiled rich kid would have. However, I do also think that it was a bit mean of him to say what he did at the exact moment I was so excited. And while generational wealth does give privilege that income alone does not, he literally does make over triple the amount of money that I have now. So it seems a tiny bit hypocritical for him to be calling me privileged. What should I do? In my opinion, I think both people in this story can do a lot better. For starters, I think the original poster maybe should not have said what they said. Like, clearly your friend hit a nerve, and this nerve is something that you did not want him to touch. But he did say what he did. He did basically call you privileged to take a pay cut, and that was incredibly inappropriate. But for you to shout back at him and be like, "No, you're the one with privilege," that in my opinion was also not the right move. And if anything, I think both of you should just get back on the phone, or at least meet in person and apologize to one another. You're clearly good friends. You both have been through thick and thin, and you both have a really good connection that would really be a shame to let go of. And also, there's no comparing between the two of you. I think there's a lot that you really can say about each other's careers, but I think it's very inappropriate to make assumptions about the true character of what's actually happening. So hopefully your friendship can work out with John, because obviously what was said was either out of jealousy or just in the heat of the moment. And I think by talking it out and trying to at least have some kind of common ground, you can hopefully become good friends again and get over this small bump in the road. My friend constantly picks up the tab for his expensive golf club, costing him hundreds of dollars just so I can play golf with him. And at this point, it kind of seems like I'm being really entitled, and I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I am financially okay. One of my closest friends is rich in the sense that they have a $13,000 tennis court in their backyard. We went to college together and have been incredibly close friends for about 20 years. His kids call me their uncle, and I was in his wedding party. I also spoke at their wedding, and honestly, I can go on with the things we've done together. It's important to note that we were broke together, even though we went to a private university and our mom and dads paid for the tuition. Despite despite the fact that the money was on us. So here's where the issue comes in. He took up golf. I've played for years and will play at the local courses and spend up on bucket list trips. Places like Pebble Beach or Streamsong or even in Ireland. He joined a nice country club as well. Whenever I text him to play golf, he always says, meet at my club. After 5 or 6 times, I told him that between guest fees, which are about $200, as well as a $120 caddy, it is a little pricey. And I wanted him to let me find a place that we could play that doesn't hit me so hard. We try to play about 2 times a week, so you can see how this would absolutely add up. For reference, I would end up at a course that's usually about $70. His issue is he can't always make a tee time. The club he goes to is first come first serve, which works given his profession. He just can't always make it to the tee times, so it's basically his club or bust. He also laughed at me and said, don't be weird. I always offer to pay, but he always just picks up the tab every time and never complains about it. I gave up on offering to pay because it felt like Groundhog Day. He asked me for little favors, I think just to make me feel good, saying stuff like, hey, on the way to the house, can you pick up some takeout or grab the kids from practice, etc. Now though, whenever I text him to play golf, it's become a given. His club, his treat. I found out from his wife he was going club shopping, so I got him a gift card for a putter. And this was for a Scotty Cameron, which is about $500. So it really did cost me a real number by my standards. But the math isn't even close to being fair. I feel like I'm inviting myself to his club, his treat, when all I want is to kick it with my buddy. I would even play $12 mini golf with him. Is this sense of entitlement in my head? How do I make sure he never ever gets that impression? What should I do? Honestly, I think if it bothered him, he probably would have said something. Like clearly he doesn't mind paying for your side of things when it comes to attending his club. He clearly has the money for it and he never feels like this is ever a deal breaker. So I don't think you're taking advantage of him. I think you're just being a friend and he's just wanting you to be around with him at his club. Like obviously you're still friends and obviously you still get to hang out, but I don't think you're acting entitled at all. It just so happens to be the fact that this really does cost a lot of money. So if anything, you probably feel really guilty for him paying for you all the time. I know if I was in that situation, I would probably feel really guilty and also a little embarrassed that I can't outright pay for it myself. So honestly, it doesn't sound like this is a big deal. I would just enjoy my trips with my friend to the golf club if I was in your shoes. Because honestly, it kind of seems like you're overthinking it. Am I the jerk for asking my friend if she's pregnant? Here's what happened. So my friend, who's a 23-year-old female, usually goes to the gym regularly and parties a lot. Lately though, I've noticed that she stopped drinking entirely and doesn't smoke at all either, and has stopped heavy lifting and isn't going to the gym as regular as she used to. On top of that, lately she'll often excuse herself to go to the toilet, presumably to throw up, and I've noticed that she's gotten a bit thicker. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not jabbing her looks. This is just something that I've noticed. When we were out the other week and I noticed she didn't even touch her Red Bull, I pulled her to the side to have a private conversation and I asked her if she was pregnant. She immediately flipped out and denied it. Right after that, she went home and I covered for her when the group asked why she went home. I texted her later that same night if I had overstepped and she simply replied by saying, "You literally called me fat. You're such a jerk." Now, I never did such a thing, but I simply let her be instead of arguing. Today, another friend told me she indeed is pregnant and I don't know what to make of her reaction towards me when I asked her in our one-on-one conversation. What should I do? Okay, let me spell this out for anybody who wants to talk to someone who presumably has gained a lot of weight or they're acting just a little bit different. Don't ever, under any circumstance, assume that a woman is pregnant. Period. End of story. Just don't do it. It is literally not worth your time and trouble to try and make that assumption, only to then get it wrong. And also, just because she's gotten a little bit thicker and isn't doing the normal stuff that she used to do, isn't some kind of excuse for you to be like, wait a second, are you pregnant? Like seriously, that is incredibly cringy and you just don't ask a woman that. It is highly inappropriate and also you're not her boyfriend. Like why are you pulling her to the side to ask her that question? That comes off as a little bit creepy and you really should have minded your own business. So in my opinion, yeah, you're the jerk. Despite the fact that she is pregnant, this is something you simply should never ask a woman because the risk of offending someone is way too high and it's just not worth the trouble to try and justify why you asked them. My entitled mother refuses to help me fix a broken cabinet and instead decides to sit in the middle of the floor, barking orders at me, trying to get me to fix it without ever lifting a single finger. And I'm honestly so annoyed and I seriously can't wait for my dad to divorce my mom. Here's what happened. To start things out, my mom is very entitled and always has been. I have quite a few stories about it, but this happened a couple hours ago and I'm still fuming. For some context, context, I'm still a teenager and I live with my brother, my mom, and dad. At the time that this happened, my dad was at work and my brother was still sleeping. We live in a 2-story house and the upstairs is like its own living area. So this morning I woke up, took care of my dog, and went upstairs to get some breakfast. I opened the cabinet and walk away because I forgot to turn the TV on. I started to walk back towards the cabinet and I hear a loud noise. I look over and one of the shelves had fallen over. I clear everything off of it because there were some breakable things. I found the pegs that held the shelf up and put them back in the slots. I stabilized the shelf enough to go downstairs to see if my mom was awake, which she was. Here's the conversation that followed. I said to her, "Hey mom, can you come upstairs? I need help. One of the cabinet shelves fell and it's heavy." My mom said, "Is it an emergency?" I said to her, "Well, no, but I'd rather it not fall any more than it has." My mom then says, "Well, if it's not an emergency, it can wait until I've had my coffee." I walk back upstairs and try to fix it as best I can, and she comes stomping up the stairs and starts yelling at me for not waiting for her and breaking it even more. I started to move the objects I put on the floor, on the table, and other counters. She sits on the floor in front of the cabinet and starts going through everything else in the cabinet that she can reach, all while the shelf continues to fall. She then says to me, "Well, aren't you going to help me fix the cabinet?" So I walk around her and grab the shelf, and she continues to just sit there. She then tells me I'm not positioning the shelf right and that I'm doing it wrong. I move out of the way so she can do it the way she wants to do it, and she just continues to sit there doing nothing. I grab the shelf and I try again, but I dropped it. She then yells at me saying, "Can't you do anything right?" I apologize, grabbed the shelf again, and got it back in the cabinet properly. She then tells me the shelf above it was slanted and that I needed to fix that one as well, while she is still sitting on the floor. So I do the same process again, and I start sorting things out to put the heavy things on the bottom of the cabinet, all while she still is sitting on the floor. I eventually finished everything. I walked away, only for her to call me back over, demanding I help her up since her legs are numb. I help her up and I just walk off. And honestly, the plan at this point is for my dad to divorce her once I finish high school, and then we are going to be moving away as far as possible. I've been saving up as much money as I can, and my dad and I have created accounts without my mom's name on any of them. So once that divorce inevitably happens, I am 100% moving in with my dad. Honestly, good for you for knowing what's gonna go down. It's also really cool to see that your dad has your back. Your mom sounds awful. How obnoxious is that? Here you are trying to fix a cabinet that's literally falling apart, and your mom's just sitting there in front of you barking orders at you. Like, that is seriously so obnoxious, and I can see why your dad is divorcing her. So hopefully that day comes sooner than later, because from the sounds of it, this really seems like this is a much bigger deal than you're letting on. And hopefully this works out for both you as well as your dad. Am I the jerk for wanting to cancel a party that I didn't sign up for after my husband told me that I would be cooking for all the guests? Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been dating for 3 years and married for 2. Recently, we have bought a house together to start a family. It has a beautiful garden and is overall quite spacious. My husband, let's call him Paul, and his best friend Ethan have known each other since elementary school, and they are very close. Ethan hasn't had any relationship during the entire time that I've known him. Apparently, this is quite rough on him. So my husband decided that he would host a party for him at our house and asked me to invite all my single girlfriends, and then they were to invite their friends as well. To be honest, I really did not want to have a party in our home, especially with me being 7 months pregnant, but I gave in and said fine because I thought it would be fun to meet my friends and just get my mind off things. We chose a date for the party and invited our friends. An estimated amount of around 30 people, mostly women, would be attending. Even though I'm pregnant and I cannot drink, I offered my husband that I could be making cocktails for the guests, as this is something that I think is fun, and I like making fake ones for myself as well. He kind of looked at me weird and said, "Well, who else would be making them?" Which really threw me off for a bit, as this was his event and not mine. I then took the moment to ask him if he had called a caterer or how he was going to be feeding all these guests, to which he gave me a look and replied by saying, "I thought you were gonna cook." Now at this point, I was sure I wasn't hearing clearly, so I asked him again and I got the same answer as before. I told him that there was absolutely no way I was going to feed 30 people and that he should either order food or make it himself. He told me that he was too busy with party planning and work and had no time, and that I should just be making appetizers instead, as people would mostly just be drinking. I told him that I would not be doing that, as my pregnancy has been hard on me and I didn't think I had it in me. He told me to just try, and I said no. I I told him that he should call catering before it's too late. Fast forward 2 weeks, and guess what? He has not called catering and told me that I had to make the appetizers as it was too late now anyways. It made me incredibly upset, and I told him that I was going to be canceling the party because at this point it was stressing me out too much. He then called me selfish and told me to quit being such a jerk and to just do something nice for his friend who he says is struggling. I do feel bad for lashing out on my husband, and I wonder if I over-exaggerated. So I need to know, am I the jerk for wanting to cancel the party that my husband is throwing for his best friend, all because he's trying to make me make all this food for all these people? What should I do? Your husband is absolutely the jerk in this situation, not you. You are 7 months pregnant and he's trying to make you cook for all these people? Like, why would he not just get catering and make it easier for everybody? This seriously could have been so simple. Like, instead of trying to make your wife cook for all these people, who, by the way, did not volunteer to do this guy should have just called catering and had somebody else take care of the food aspect of this party. Like, it really would not have been that big of a deal, and it would have been so much easier than trying to force your pregnant wife to take care of all of it. So no, you're not the jerk in the slightest. I feel like if I was in that situation as well, and I'm 7 months pregnant, and I'm already stressed out of my mind about the pregnancy, I would want to back out of this party as well, because your husband is being unreasonable, and his decision to do this without asking you first is incredibly selfish. An entitled Karen tries to get me fired, not only making a formal complaint herself, but also forging a fake complaint from a patient, claiming that I was dressing too provocatively to be around any of the patients in the hospital. So I decided to get some revenge and eventually forcing her to put her 2 weeks notice in. And I've never felt better about getting revenge on anybody in my life. Here's what happened. So I work at a hospital that doubles as a research institution. Since I'm on the research side, I have to involve lots of other departments, and most people with whom I work with are very chill and understand that I have to beseech them for things to do my job. I'm one of those people who's very on top of things, for which my coworkers really value. However, the one place where the camaraderie breaks down is with some of the nurses who work in my specific clinic. Honestly, I've done a good job making most of the nurses like me. I bring them homemade treats sometimes, and I'm always extra friendly and approbative with them. Some of them have their days regardless, and I just put up with them. Right after I first started working in that specific clinic, unfortunately, one nurse in particular, we'll call her Karen, had decided that I was on her blacklist. Karen hates doing work. She's like a kid playing Xbox. When their parents ask them for help with groceries, she'll moan and groan, and if she helps at all, it is with an angsty indignation. I needed a series of blood tubes drawn in clinic for a patient one morning, and guess what? Karen was the only nurse available. She was extremely put off by my asking her to help me out with this. She clearly did not want to leave her computer, which wasn't even open to anything work-related, but eventually she begrudgingly went and drew the tubes. She was also then unnecessarily profusely thanked by me just for doing her stupid job. I came back down later to get a prescription signed for another patient, and a different nurse asked me what I had done to upset Karen, because she had apparently been going off about me to anyone who would listen. I explained what happened, and the other nurse informed me that Karen was incredibly upset, and also felt my outfit, which was a white medical coat, a modest blouse, work pants, and high-heel boots, was apparently way too provocative. I thought to myself, what are you talking about? I just decided to let it go and try and avoid Karen as much as possible, but this did not work. I kept running into situations where the other nurses were busy seeing patients. I was forced to walk back into the nurses' triage room, which is off limits to patients, and ask this Karen to draw 2 more of these blood kits in the next month. She was never happy to see me, and she was always wasting time on her work computer when I entered the room. Maybe 2 or 3 days after the last kit was drawn, my supervisor called me into her office to discuss my presentation. She very nicely, and with pity in her voice, told me that she had received a report about my dress habits in patient-facing spaces. She said she personally hadn't noticed anything, but was obligated to discuss this with me anyways. I assured her I had no idea what she was talking about. I thought about confronting this Karen, but decided not to because this lady was a loose cannon. After a brief reminder of the dress code, I figured at least it was over. Well, it was not over. 2 weeks later, a formal report was filed against me for my conduct in the clinic, and I had not even asked anyone to draw any kits in the interim. This went to the hospital and then my supervisor, who, even after reading the report, seemed totally clueless about what it could mean. I then explained what happened with this Karen. But then my supervisor told me that a second person had reported this as well on the same day as who was obviously the Karen. This time though, it was a patient. The patient had reported that I was dressing improperly for a patient-facing environment, but I asserted that no, I didn't do that. But I was nonetheless put on probation, which meant that my supervisor, against her will, now had to come with me when I saw patients in clinic for the foreseeable future, and a nurse manager would have to accompany both of us when she was free since I was dressing provocatively in patient-facing spaces, and that was her domain. But as you can likely guess from her browsing habits, this Karen was not the sort of person who needed more supervisors in her area. So this is when my malicious compliance came in. Fine, you want to punish me and force me to work in the eyesight of supervisors? Alright, let's get the supervisors down here as quickly as possible. My next in-clinic patient came in 2 days, and it was one of those visits that involved the protocol kits, which meant I was forced to ask one of the nurses to draw the patient's blood. I informed my supervisor and we set off down for clinic. The nurse manager was in that day, so she accompanied the two of us. We all went back to the triage room so that I could ask for help with the blood draws. Karen and one other nurse were there as well. What we saw upon entering was the other nurse entering vital signs for a patient straight into our health database, and the Karen was sitting at her desk with an online clothing retailer open in one monitor and Facebook open on the other. I asked for Karen's help drawing the kit, and she sighed heavily and spun around, just to see two higher-ups looking on with disdain at her work's computer. In embarrassment, she swiveled back and closed those two tabs, which revealed, and you can't make this stuff up, certain products that are kinda sketchy to be looking at work, if you know what I mean. And that had been open in another tab, about which this Karen had clearly forgotten about until now. I just smiled and handed her the bag like nothing happened. In the hall, my supervisor and the nurse manager were talking about Karen's display just now. Apparently, she had been previously warned about goofing off at work. The nurse manager told the supervisor that she was going to check all of Karen's work computer activity, which I actually didn't know any supervisor could readily access. What followed was so incredibly beautiful that I hope made the ending of this long post well worth waiting for. According to the nurse who had initially asked me what I had done to upset the Karen, her activity was completely searched. She was revealed to have spent hours upon hours every day browsing the web, shopping online, and using social media. Since she had been previously warned about this behavior, she was given a formal write-up. But this was just the beginning. The day after the three of us went down to the clinic, my supervisor called me into her office again. She told me that Karen had fabricated the patient complaint about me and posted it from her work computer. Now, how did they learn about this, you might be asking? Well, it's because she saved a draft of the message that reported me to the hospital, and she had accessed the patient complaint page the same day. My supervisor sincerely apologized for the hassle and told me I was no longer on probation. As for this entitled Karen, apparently fearing the worst, she put in her 2 weeks notice in the same day after getting wind that she was in some far more serious trouble. For reasons I will never understand as long as I live, the hospital chose to let her quit after 2 weeks instead of firing her on the spot. Maybe they knew what a nightmare she was and were comfortable letting her quit on her own accord. It's not as though she was due to glean any glowing references from this experience anyways. Maybe they just wanted some extra work. I mean, our clinic was very short-staffed for nurses at the time anyways. In any case, they chose not to fire her and let her quit on her own time. On the Karen's last day, I ventured down to the triage room to retrieve some outside records from their printer. When I entered, the Karen was alone and browsing Glassdoor. I unbuttoned my whole white coat and told her loud, "Hey, good luck with your next job. I hope the next employees you deal with are less provocative." She slowly spun around with a scowl on her face, and then I walked out, and I never saw that entitled Karen ever again. Honestly, I can't stand coworkers like that. Not only do they not want to work there, but they're also miserable, and it seems like they have a vendetta against you, and they want you to be miserable as well. Like, that seriously is so unfair. The original poster didn't do anything wrong. If anything, they just wanted to do their job and get it done. And unfortunately, that involved other people doing their job as well. Like, this Karen nurse has no business being in the medical field. They don't care about people in the slightest. They don't care about anyone, in fact. They would rather spend all day on social media or shopping online or looking up sketchy things instead of doing their job and saving lives. Like, seriously, if you hate your job that much, it might be time for some kind of career change. And how crazy is that she made up a false claim from a patient just to get this person in trouble, all because she asked them to draw some blood? Like, seriously, was it worth your job? Was it worth trying to ruin someone else's career just so you could try and get some petty revenge? I'm really with the original poster here. That entitled Karen should have been straight up fired instead of waiting 2 weeks. I mean, I totally get that you guys are short-staffed, but let's be honest, she wasn't doing anything to assist that hospital in the slightest. So good for the original poster for getting some well-deserved revenge. This entitled Karen absolutely had it coming, and it's really nice to finally see justice get served. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. Today, I messed up by getting stuck on my roof like a complete idiot, forcing me to call the police to try and help me out, which resulted in my embarrassment getting even higher than before. Here's what happened. Okay, so this actually happened yesterday, but I've only just mentally recovered enough to speak about it. So it was a sunny day, and in my flat, the only place the sun really hits is the window facing onto the roof and the streets below. I decided, obviously, to sit on my windowsill with the window wide open and get some sunbathing in. I don't spend that long on the windowsill because I get hungry, and I eventually decide to go back in, swinging my legs round back into the living room. Somehow I managed to knock my phone off the edge with my hand, and it goes flying further onto the roof. My flat is on the top floor, and the roof slants for a bit, and then it's just kind of flat, so it's not the most dangerous roof out there. Obviously, I'm not just gonna leave my phone out there, cause what if it rains? Like, I need my phone. Anyways, I go and get it by scooting over to it really slowly, so I don't trip and fall off the edge. I'm being so safe about it, surely nothing can go wrong, right? Well, as I get out from under the window, which opens upwards, I must have knocked it, making it fly shut. Not fully, but it closes the latch, which you need to push up just to open. My jaw has never dropped so fast in my life, because of course this happens to me. Of course this happens when all my flatmates are out of town. I panic a little bit, but I'm thinking to myself, I just need to push up the latch from below, it'll be fine. I find some kind of metal bar further on the roof, because this building is falling apart. I mean, it's seconds away from just straight up disintegrating. I managed to slip my hand through the tiny gap in the side, and I tried with all my strength to push the latch up. When I tell you I sat there for like 20 minutes trying to push this latch up, I'm not joking. My hand and arm is all scratched up because of it. Well, I get nowhere with that metal bar, so I decide to call my friend, who has a lot more common sense than I do. They tell me to call 911, so I do exactly that. I'm already embarrassed because I've been stuck on this roof for long enough already, and now I have to tell the authorities how I managed to get stuck on the roof like an idiot. They come 5 minutes later, sirens and all, and they call me again. I scoot closer to the edge and I wave down to them, and while on the phone, I tell them I can just chuck my keys down to them so that we don't have to shut down the entire road just to get me down. But nope, that's not gonna happen. They put up the safety tape, and they start to maneuver the cherry picker just to try and come and get me. I'm actually considering just jumping off at this point. I'm so embarrassed. Not only have I done the dumbest thing imaginable and locked myself on the roof, now literally everyone in the entire city has come by to see what is happening. Like, there's a crowd waiting outside the tape just to see what happened. I eventually get on the cherry picker and I get down, which is actually quite cool that I got to be on one, even though this was all incredibly humiliating. After I got down, I was so set to run back into my flat and just never leave it again. But of course, the police have to ask me if I'm having a mental health crisis, so I have to tell them, no, I'm just a complete idiot. And they probably agree with me, honestly. I mean, I wouldn't blame them either. Anyways, I obviously told everyone in my life about this, because now that I think about it, it is kind of hilarious. I don't think my parents are very proud of me anymore, but I mean, whatever. They raised me like this, so this is kind of their fault. That is honestly hilarious. Here you are just trying to get your stupid phone, and then suddenly there's an entire crowd watching your stupid self get off the roof. I mean, that honestly really sucks. I know I would be embarrassed in that situation, so I really do have sympathy for the original poster. And I also think it's really dumb how the police didn't just go into your house and open the window. Like, they very easily could have done that. You gave them permission, and you were willing to throw down your keys so they could do that. That really seems like the most obvious thing to do in this kind of situation. So next time you decide to go out on your windowsill, make sure there's something there to stop the window from closing. Because while this really was an embarrassing moment in your life, let's pray that this doesn't happen again by accident. An entitled Karen freaks out at the store I'm working at, all because she doesn't get the discount that she demands. And I'm honestly so sick of people like this, and I seriously hope I never deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. I work at a popular dollar store chain in a small town in Texas. We have an old computer system that occasionally needs to be reset due to its glitching. Before the events of this story, we had a problem with some some coupons that wouldn't ring up properly, which caused a small bit of a line to pile up at my register, which was the only open register at the time. Most of the customers were super understanding and kind, they usually are, but this one particular person wasn't the most friendly. That's okay, I can deal with grumpy or impatient. I'm almost always in a good mood, and I'm happy to help out. It may sound surprising, but I really love my job and my customers. This lady, we'll call her the Karen of the story, sets down 5 of those candy packages with the 5 pieces of on-brand chocolate inside a rectangular cardboard strip on the counter. We had a sale for $5 for candy of that same brand. This is where things immediately got rocky. I began scanning, and as I was telling the last customer to have a nice day, she cuts me off. Yeah, okay, I need you to total those and see the price for the 5 for $5 to see if you will actually apply this coupon. Okay, let's get started then, I guess. So I smile and I say, of course, we can absolutely check that for you. I total the candies up and the discount doesn't apply. I say to her, I'm sorry ma'am, it doesn't apply. This Karen gets huffy, rolls her eyes and says, yeah, y'all did this the last time, you're shorting me my discount. I check the packages to see if they apply to the discount, and immediately I noticed they weren't made by the same brand or company. Karen, as I looked at the candies, loudly stated, they're Hershey-made chocolate, I already checked. Now, I didn't wish to argue with her, and I thought that maybe our system had made an error. I say to her, okay, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I'll go check with my associate to see if we can figure out what the issue is. The entitled Karen crosses her arms, says okay, and begins talking to the nice man behind her, who had a full cart waiting patiently while I walked behind a shelf to find my coworker. I heard this Karen loudly ranting to the man, this is why I don't come here. They are so slow and always on their phones. I didn't know what she meant. We tend to keep off our phones unless in the break room. I come back after telling my coworker, an absolute saint of a woman, that I need her assistance. Alright, she's on her way. I smile to the man and the Karen and I say, we can go ahead and scan the rest of your items, ma'am, while we wait for her to come around. I begin to scan the items before I get one of the last bags of candy before the Karen says, don't scan that one. Caught off guard, I say to her, what do you mean? She said, don't scan that one. It's $1 difference, which is what you owe me for that candy. That way you won't be shorting me. I hesitate and I say to her, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I can't legally do that. She scoffs and I try to explain. We can scan all these items and at the end of it, when my coworker gets here, we can figure out if it's the system and see if we can fix the discount for you. She once again cuts me off. She says, okay, do whatever you need to do. I forced a smile and I finish the item. This is too much trouble, the Karen says to the nice man, who says something with humor to lighten the situation. The Karen speaks again. This is why I've stopped coming here. She is taking forever because she is back there playing on her phone. She was referring to my coworker, who had been on break inside of our break room eating and scrolling on her phone. I speak before I can think, and I say, well, she's actually on break. And to my surprise, this made the entitled Karen stop talking, with my coworker on the way to save the day, thank God. She put her key in the system and asked what the problem was. Before I could even begin to explain, the entitled Karen cut me off. This is 5 for $5, and it's not giving me my discount. Y'all owe me $1 discount. Okay, well, let's see what we can do. My coworker does some magic with the system and sets it right to get this lady her precious discount. Okay, there we go, I say to her to then total the items. Finally, the Karen says. She pays for her items, gives a half-hearted thank you, and then storms off out of the store. I say to her, you're welcome, and then immediately went to the next customer. Sorry for your wait, sir. He just chuckled and cracked a few jokes saying that it was okay and relieved me of my stress. It turns out that the lady was wrong about the discount and I had been right to check the candy because it was not in fact applicable to this discount. We went to check back because it was strange even for the system to mess up like that. My coworker just added the discount to diffuse the situation from getting any worse than it already was. And honestly, I hope I never have to deal with that Karen ever again. That honestly leads me to believe that she did that on purpose. She used the classic tactic of overwhelming the person at the front desk just to try and get what they want. She was rude, she was hateful, she was demanding that you not check certain items. Like she was clearly trying to hide something pretty obvious in front of everybody. And that's not fair for you in the slightest. Like think about it, you're just trying to do your job. You don't want this hassle. You want to check her out and get her out the door and then stop thinking about her. But at least your associate had some kind of insight to just give her the discount and send her on her way. And hopefully for the sake of you and everybody else in that store, you never have to deal with her ever again. Am I the jerk for hiding food from my boyfriend after he eats all the good junk food all in one sitting right after I went shopping? Here's what happened. So my boyfriend boyfriend and I have been together for years and we now live together. We don't have kids and we're very happy and we have good communication. There's just one issue that drives me nuts. We use a joint account to buy food for us, usually shopping together a few times a month, and then one of us picking up things here and there. I cook dinner almost every night and we don't eat a ton of junk, but occasionally I'll buy things we both love for a weekend or just to indulge here and there. The issue is that I go to bed on the early side and he stays up late and goes full ham on any junk food we have around on any given night of the week. I'm talking an entire family-sized bag of chips and the entire container of queso. It'll all be gone in one sitting that I was saving for Friday night margaritas. I went to make us root beer floats with a quart of ice cream and 2 liters of soda, and they were gone from shopping 2 days prior. He doesn't ever replace things. He just gives me a sheepish smile when I ask where the rest of something is, knowing that he ate it all. So last night, after cleaning up the kitchen from dinner, I put all the candy and chips and anything shelf stable in a different place where he wouldn't find them. He went ballistic after I went to bed that all the good food was gone, even though I had just cooked a nice dinner. I told him, well, welcome to my world, as this is constantly happening when I go to have anything that's been purchased. He said I was treating him like a child, and I said he was acting like one. I don't care that he indulges, but to literally finish off every bit of something that's been bought for both of us to enjoy is honestly getting really old. It's not a weight thing or a money thing. I just want him to leave maybe one portion for me, or maybe we can enjoy something together. So until he can show me some kind of willpower, I told him I won't be keeping any junk food around for him to gorge himself on unless it's something that he's purchased on his own account. Part of me thinks that this is funny, which is why I might be kind of a jerk, but I think he needs to figure out how to share, as well as needing to figure out how to not consume the entire lot in one sitting, or figure out how to buy his own treats. So am I the jerk for hiding food from my boyfriend? No, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. He is literally eating all the food in one sitting. Like, you bought this so both of you can enjoy it, but he's going literally out of his way to eat everything all at once. Like, seriously, this guy needs to find some limits. So if hiding it kind of wakes him up to the way he's been acting, then I seriously don't see that as a big deal, because the way he's acting is incredibly selfish, and he needs to learn to share, otherwise the food is always just gonna stay hidden. My entitled manager demands to search my bag, claiming that one of their employees is a thief and is actively stealing merchandise from their store. But I wasn't about to take this sitting down, so I decided to get some revenge, and in retaliation, I put some incredibly sketchy and scandalous things in my bag that she would be forced to handle and search through, with the sole intention of punishing her for ever thinking it would be a good idea to search my bag. And I've never felt better about getting back at my boss in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I work 3 jobs. The hours and the days vary, but my full-time job is an office space in a very fancy modern office with a great company. They have some great perks on site as well. They've got a full gym, lockers and showers, a full cafeteria, etc. My second job is close to a full-time job, depending on other employees' availability, as there is no set schedule and it can be very chaotic and not well run. It's a boutique and it's just a bus ride from my office, and it's all in a very busy downtown city by the ocean. The thing is, it's a tourist boutique. It's all city branded trinkets, shirts, postcards, and gifts. There's really not much any locals would want unless you're buying it for out-of-town family. To round things out, my third job is a fast food place. I'm often between these 2 jobs and I don't have time to run home. I carry a gym bag with me with my tiny purse as well as my wallet inside, along with clean business professional clothes, gym clothes, and work uniforms to change in and out of, as well as extra underwear, as it is summer and it's extremely hot, and our buses don't usually ever have AC, so if there's time, I'll shower at the office. So I bring travel-sized shower items as well. I also carry along a book for the bus rides, as I don't have a car of my own, as well as lunch, snacks, and a hairbrush. Now, apparently, the boutique has experienced a lot of loss, something we had previously brought up being an issue, because our boss, the owner, will have big tables and buckets of items outside by the sides of the door where we can't monitor them, especially if we're inside with the customers. People definitely take advantage, and we've seen a lot of people grab things and then just take off. And these aren't cheaper items in the store either. We've lost an entire display of mid-price sunglasses, handful of bikini separates, and at one point the entire table was emptied in a snatch and run with 5 younger people. But with all of this, he actually thinks it's us stealing things. His wife runs the store and she's always in. She said we have a new mandatory mandatory bag check, and every employee in the store is a woman who usually carries a purse or a bag. It's not just a quick look through the bag either. She wants to remove the items and feel around the sides of the bag and make sure we aren't taking any trinkets and items. I'll be honest, I haven't seen anybody on staff ever steal anything, and there's 4 of us in total, and I don't even think it's because they're all stand-up employees. I think it's because they don't care to own any of the cheap, tacky tourist items. Because my bag is bigger, it's been kind of a nightmare for me. She wants me to take every individual item out of my bag and show that there's nothing wrapped up inside of it, lay it out across the table by the register. The first day of this, I was late to work because she wouldn't start checking my bag until I clocked out, and then she took her time with a customer, causing me to be almost half an hour late to my other job. I consider that I could just continue getting lockers at my office, but they are day use only, so depending on my schedule, I'd have to make a separate trip to get back to the office before the building closed just to remove my items, and it wouldn't be feasible with my other jobs. I'm honestly pretty sure the staff who cleans the lockers at the end of the day probably wouldn't mind and would work something out for me, but I don't feel like I need to go out of my way to keep a steady rotation on a locker. If my boutique manager wants to make things awkward and difficult for me, then I'm gonna turn it around and do it right back at her. Now, she is a very tightly wound conservative lady, so I added a few extra items to my gym bag. Now, I don't get my period, but I did throw in some female hygiene products just to try and make her squirm, because period talk makes her absolutely faint. I also included some new reading material as well, some old sketchy magazines from the 70s that are definitely not something you want to bring to work. I keep it at the house for aesthetic purposes, and to be honest, I just like them. I also swapped in some of my most scandalous and functionally impossible underwear, but also one of my granniest of panties. I also, for no reason at all, included some contraceptives, some furry handcuffs, and I picked up a pamphlet at a nearby community center for their group therapy for bereavement. And let me tell you, it went off perfectly at the end of my shift. There were customers in the store, and she made me go through my bag item by item, opening them up and holding it up so she can check to make sure there was nothing hidden. I carefully fanned out my old magazine to show there was nothing between the pages. I pulled out each set of underwear like a creepy fashion show, holding them up to the light so she can see directly through the lace. Every item we pulled out of the gym bag made her more and more flush. She was so uncomfortable she could barely perform the check. She nearly had a panic attack when I pulled out a little sandwich baggie with female hygiene products in it. I even pulled out the pamphlet and set it aside slowly with the intent to seem affected by it. And when I did that, she looked at me puzzled and kind of confused. She asked me what this is about, and I said to her solemnly, "Oh, I haven't lost anybody, but it's a great place to meet new people." And I pulled the contraceptives out right after saying that. My second bag check was definitely faster than the first, and I was finished and out the door in time to catch my bus and arrived to work earlier than I ever expected. Speed running the bag check wasn't my initial plan, but it was definitely an unconsidered plus to the situation. Now, I honestly don't mind doing a bag check if they really feel like it's so necessary, but the invasiveness of making every employee pull out everything inside their bags on a table where every customer in the store has a plain view of everything they have is honestly a little much, and purposefully making it take so much time that it's interfering with my other jobs as well as my personal life is just really crossing a line. But now I'm kind of excited to see what other items I can include in my gym bag just to keep this lady on her toes. I don't want it to be too obvious, but just enough to make her consider that a lady's bag is usually private, and upending that for all customers to see might not be great for business. Wow, that's an awful policy to throw on your workers, and it also shows that they blatantly just don't trust you. They assume that, wow, they have to be the ones stealing, and not the people literally out front taking the merchandise that these stupid owners are leaving out without even thinking about it. I personally side completely with the original poster. This is a huge invasion of privacy, and there's legitimately no good reason to act like this. Like, if they really wanted to investigate why they're losing so much merchandise, they should maybe start by setting up cameras outside, and then they might capture some of the people that are stealing from their store. And it makes sense, like, who in their right mind would steal this stupid tourist stuff? It's stuff like postcards and trinkets and shirts. I know if I worked there, the last thing I would want to do is try and take any items from that store. And also, why are they searching their bags off the clock? Like, isn't that really counterintuitive? Like, if you're gonna waste my time and spend, 30 minutes searching my bag, you better believe I want to be on the clock so I get paid. And the the original poster has 2 other jobs. Like, are these owners really that inconsiderate? So personally, good for you for saying, you know what, if you want to search my bag, I'm gonna make you pay for it. Putting stuff in your bag that would intentionally mess with this lady is really funny to me. And based on the way she treats her employees, it honestly really sounds like she had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also follow Am I the Jerk on Instagram and Twitter to see all the stories that couldn't make it into the videos. An entitled Karen has a meltdown over ice cream in her shopping cart, claiming that she never bought it despite the fact that it was bagged up and ready to go. And I've never been more amazed by someone else's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. So I overheard a Karen while I was in a self-checkout. She was already at the register, and the only register open was next to her. I had to park my cart further away than I wanted to because she had at least 6 kids under 10 years old, all of them swarming the area. One of the stupid kids was standing still, completely in the way of where my cart should have gone. And that one child seemed to be the only child that realized how crazy things were getting and was embarrassed and mentally shutting down. I also understand the woman was overwhelmed, which probably caused her to melt down. I'm not sure if they were all her kids or not, but she was already screaming and cursing at them as they were running away from the self-checkout area and running by the employee manned registers. Now, I was just minding my own business. I was completely ignoring it. As long as they didn't mess with me, it was fine. I scanned a box and it came up as an unknown item. 2 employees started to head my way, and I thought possibly one was training the other one, which would explain 2 of them coming over. What I didn't know is that the Karen had also called them over as well. She wanted them to take ice cream off of her receipt, saying that she didn't have any ice cream. The employee then pointed at her grocery bag and said, "Isn't that the ice cream?" And you can clearly see it through the bag. This Karen goes off on him. "How dare you look through my bags? That's invading my privacy. Take that stupid ice cream off right now. I am not paying for that. What's your name? Tell me right now." And right after the employee gives them their name, she says to this guy that she's going to call corporate on him. The guy that helped me already fixed the scanning issue, but he was still standing there confused. I think he was trying to figure out if he should jump in or if he should just stay quiet. Maybe he was preparing for a fight, I don't know. The employee was trying to explain, but there was more screaming and cussing. Then the Karen was out of there pretty quickly, so I'm not sure entirely what happened, but I have 3 options in mind. First of all, there's a chance she already paid before wanting the ice cream taken off, or they took the ice cream off, took the loss, and then she paid. Or the very distinct third option that she took off without paying. I was still standing for another few minutes as I scanned the rest of my items and paid for my stuff. The employees started to gather to see if the employee that was yelled at was doing okay. One employee showed up and said they saw it on the cameras and rushed over thinking that there was about to be a fight. They comforted them by saying that if the Karen does call back, they have their back. I also heard one of them say that the Karen was already an issue before she got to the checkout. As I was leaving, this entitled Karen was stuck in the entryway as her kids were trying to fish quarters out of the sticker machines. I had a ton of trouble navigating around them as she was in the doorway screaming at them to move. The last thing I heard was this entitled Karen screaming. She said to these kids, "That's it. I am not taking you to the stupid amusement park." And I honestly just feel bad for the workers if they ever have to deal with this Karen ever again. Wow, that lady was being really obnoxious. There's 2 possibilities that came to mind for me. She either really was trying to steal that ice cream, or one of the kids put that in the cart without her knowing. Like, for me, it's one or the other. She's either trying to pull a fast one, or one of those kids is doing the exact same thing to her. And hopefully it's just the kids being stupid, because I can't imagine having to deal with someone like that who is seriously so out of touch that they freak out over the smallest of things. Like, does she not realize she's in public right now? Like, people can see you acting insane. It doesn't help that you have no control over any of your kids, but you're also causing this massive scene. Like, seriously, she needs to get a grip and calm down. So next time, she should probably be way more mindful of what she puts in her cart, because chances are this will probably happen again. I'm convinced that my boyfriend resents me now that I'm earning more money than him as a doctor, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I met my boyfriend, who is a school teacher, about 6 years ago, and this is when I was still a med student. He helped me during the difficult years of my residency, and we had what I thought was a solid relationship. We have similar interests in movies, music, board games. We had some arguments, but they were always resolved through talking. We also always have fun together. Now that I finally finished residency and landed a solid job with good pay. We even started looking for a place to move together. The thing is, now that I finally feel like we can truly start to enjoy things, all with having a more financially stable situation and with me having more free time, he seems to really resent me, and I don't understand that. It started innocent enough, with him making slight remarks about me now being a fancy doctor, and this is all when I bought some new, better quality and professional clothing. But now the remarks never seem to stop. We went to a holiday together, and I booked a better hotel room than we usually get, and this was all because I can afford one like that now, and I was very excited about it. He told me I was showing off my new doctor money. I paid for his entrance ticket to a concert to a band we both liked, and he told me he would prefer if we went to a local bar. I then paid for dinner at a restaurant that we always talked about trying in the future, and he just complains about the size of the portions. Yesterday, I gave him a new shirt, and he told me, "Oh, of course, now I have to dress better just to be with you." I told him that phrase hurt me, and he told me he was just joking, to which I said that jokes were supposed to be funny and not hurtful, and he then accused me of being too sensitive. I left shortly afterwards because he refused to talk more about it. I simply do not understand this man. I pay these things for him because I wanted to enjoy them with him, and since I can't afford them and he can't, it seemed obvious that I would just pay his part. Gift giving is one of my love languages, especially